What's going on, Odds Squad? It's your boys, it's the crew, it's Odds HQ, it's odds.com, coming at you with the rare Tuesday night live stream. We've just had weigh-ins. It's a Wednesday card. UFC Fight Island 8. Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to throw it to the guys, and we're going to get it going. Guru, what's up?
Yeah, man, like you said, Tuesday night stream. Usually when it's Tuesday, we're here breaking down, the Contender Series or something like that. So tomorrow we have this card. If you're on the West Coast for the U.S., man, I mean, you might want to put in your parlays, right after the show or something, because it's going to be at I think 6 a.m. So, people in Europe, they get the, prime time this week. But yeah, it should be a good card. I mean, Chiesa, Magny, they're two guys that have been around for a long time, and they've already had a few main events, but it's good to see them, get another showcase spot, and the winner will be close to maybe like a top 5 fighter. So, it's a good main event for sure.
Absolutely. Get the alarm clock set and the coffee ready. Lock of the night. What's up, man?
Nothing much, man. The last event, we almost completed the full consensus pick for the main event, and I blame Bleed out here for the beating that Calvin Kattar took this time around. But good for him. He cashes on Max Holloway. We got the eggs on our faces this week around. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fight. Big welterweight bout, like Guru was talking about. A big win here for either guy could definitely push them into that top 8, top 7 contention here. Really much looking forward to it. And again, this Tuesday thing is roughing me up a little bit. Me and Cody did the prop show yesterday. That was weird, doing a stream on a Monday. We're here Tuesday, but we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming come Thursday and Friday. So yeah, happy to be here on Tuesday and happy for some morning fights tomorrow. I called into sick. I called into work sick already. So make sure you guys do the same thing. All right.
Love it. Love it. Cody Saftic, what's up, dude?
Yeah, Max Holloway, godlike performance. Joaquin Buckley, shit in the apple pie. But luckily for us, we don't got to wait too long to get back after it. So let's get back in the win column, guys.
No doubt. All right, first fight of the night. We've got Victoria Leonardo and Manon Fiorot. Tell my man Cody kick us off tonight.
Yeah, so I like Manon Fiorot in the spot. They opened it at -110. It seemed like they were kind of seeing it as a 50-50 women's fight, but there's a lot that you can like out of her. She's got a really credible kickboxing and karate pedigree, moves very well from the outside, big for the division, 5'7" at 125 pounds, strikes extremely well, and I just love the diversity with the kicks. She kicks to the body, excellent. She'll switch stances, a lot of kicks to the legs as well, sets up those head kicks. And Victoria Leonardo, she's strong, she's brute, she's a raw version of Angela Lee, and take that for what it's worth, because Angela Lee's still very unrefined herself. But she gets by on a lot of the power a lot of the times. Is just trying to make it an ugly fight, get through the pocket, grease you up a little bit. But she's coming at it with a striking disadvantage for sure. And as far as the ground game goes, I don't know that I would say that her ground game is that much better. That's something she can rely on. When you look at even the fight with Chelsea Hackett on the Contender Series, even though it's a nice win for her, she comes through as the underdog. She gets the big win over Chelsea Hackett. She does get hurt in that first round initially. Her fight with Blanchard on Invicta as well. I mean, she's fighting a 20-year-old kid, and that head kick's there all day just because she keeps her hands so low. She is there to get hit. She could get hurt. I think that's a good path for her. Now, the other thing with the Chelsea Hackett fight, Chelsea Hackett's 5'4" versus Leonardo's 5'5". So she can get away with it in that spot. It's not much of a big size discrepancy. But Moreau being 5'7", I really want to see what she was going to look at weigh-ins. She looked good on the scale, but it's the stare down. It's the stare down that you realize it's like, oh, she's much bigger. She's much bigger. She should be able to control the outside, be the better striker, maybe force a knockout. But I see why the money's coming in, and she's moved from a -110 to a 2-1 favorite. I understand. But anything more than 2-1, now you start to think it's women's MMA. She's making her debut. She's a French striker. You can't completely discredit Leonardo, but I think the pick should be the French fighter.
Sounds good to me, man. I think you hit every point there. Guru, how do you see it?
Yeah, pretty much what Cody said. I mean, when you look at Leonardo, she's kind of a grinder with, some okay striking, but, her defense on the feet is really not very good. I mean, you see her kind of, walk into the same shots over and over, like, the Blanchfield knockout with the head kick. And she even got rocked with the head kick, I believe, against Chelsea Hackett. I think that was the strike that hurt her there too. So Fourier is a girl that has that karate type background, good kicks, and she controls distance pretty well. So I think that, Leonardo is going to have to make it ugly, get in the clinch, try to dirty box, take it to the ground. But, I've seen Fiorot in a few fights on the ground, where she's been able to, reverse sweep. She doesn't look like she's, completely like a fish out of water like Hackett was. So I feel like even if she does get taken down a couple times, she may even be able to be competitive in the grappling. And I think that, the gap in the striking is a lot wider. So I think that Fiorot should win, but like Cody was saying, they opened the line at a pick'em. So now at minus 200, I don't know truly how much value you're really getting there, but I do think just as a pick that she's going to win.
Right on. Locke, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to echo the same sentiment as these guys here. I think that Figueiredo has a great striking game. And I think the difference between her and what we saw with Chelsea Hackett is the at least comfortability with Figueiredo on the ground. Like, she's not a fish out of water as it seemed that Chelsea Hackett was, right? So we're going to see her be able to control the distance. And like Cody touched on too, the size difference is very evident once you see them really face off with each other. So I believe she has a 2-inch height advantage here. I think she'll be able to use all of that, pretty much keep her on the outside. But if this fight does get dragged to the ground, I don't think that she'll be in too much trouble. Now we see with Leonardo, she kind of, I don't want to call her a jack of all trades, but she's passable in almost every realm of MMA, but she's not great at anything, right? So you see her in fights against like Erin Blanchard, where she takes a striking approach, but still goes out there and gets her head decapitated by a grappler. So that's her first red flag there. Then she goes up against Liz Tracy, another fighter who's grappling based. So she goes out there and tries to outstrike her, and that's what she's successful in. She has a 2-inch height advantage in that fight, and she's able to keep her on the outside, do some good damage with her striking. Then in the next fight against Chelsea Hackett, she's like, screw the striking. Let's get this fight to the ground as soon as possible. And that's obviously the way you want to approach it if you're in the Leonardo camp. Now in this fight as well, I think we're going to see her try to pursue the grappling. But once she isn't as successful as she was against Chelsea Hackett, I think it's going to become very evident that Figueiredo is going to be able to get this fight to the feet and really start to control it from there. So I'm expecting a knockout finish, maybe even another head kick finish as well on Leonardo's loss column, I should say. But I like Figueiredo here. It's obvious with the steamage that we're getting on her line as well, too, opening up at even odds and going all the way up to a 2-1 favorite. Now, the spot that I like the most, and I even pointed it on the prop show last night, was the Figueiredo KO prop. I think that's a solid prop, or even the round prop. I think it could probably take about a round or so for her to get comfortable in there, and then maybe in the second or third round she can go out there and kind of do what Erin Blanchfield did and just decapitate this woman in the second round with a head kick. So I'm going Figueiredo. I think she has a ton of potential, and I'm really looking forward to how they built her in this UFC division, because over there at UAE, they were building her up relatively quickly. She had her first fight in 2020 in July, and then within 5 months, she goes out there and has 3 more fights, winning them all via finish, and she shows great skills. So I feel bad for Leonardo. Like, they just keep lining her up with these hot prospects, and unfortunately for her this time around, this hot prospect really knows how to use the ground game as well, too. So I think it's going to be a detriment to her, and once again, I'll go with Figueiredo to win this fight via KO, probably second or third round.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys what, I don't know if I have anything to add to that. You guys hit the nail on the head in every which way. I'm taking Figueiredo as well. You know, we could have got a much better number on earlier this week. Hats off to you if you pulled that off. Leonardo just seems to have a very limited skill set. I think Figueiredo has that skill and the striking, all the advantages. I even think if it goes to the mat, Figueiredo's not going to have a problem. I think Leonardo, really, that's her only path to victory, to make it a grinding, dirty fight. I got Figueiredo in this one. I feel like she could win it anywhere. Easy pick. I'm going Figueiredo. Debuting fighter, though, women's MMA. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a bet on it, but I might figure something out. Next up, we got Umar Nurmagomedov going up against Sergey Morozov. Guru, can you get us going?
Yeah, this is a good fight. I feel like the odds could be a little bit closer here because Morozov is a, experienced guy. He has a pretty good record. But I do see, like Umar's a young guy, and when you watch – a few of his fights, you could see, the big improvement, like when he fought Brian Gonzalez in his last fight, he really just ran through him, took the back out of rear naked choke. And that's something that Morozov does do, is give his back and scrambles. But I feel like on the feet, I mean, if Nurmagomedov gets comfortable with his kicking game and stuff like that, I definitely could see Morozov maybe landing a few shots. He is fast and he, closes distance pretty well with his boxing. And, if you watch a few of his fights, he has a good grappling game as well. He could really kind of, take you down, control you. I don't think he's as good as Umar is. And you saw in the fight with Movsar Evloev that he did get kind of grinded out a little bit in that fight. So, the path to victory is there for Umar if he wants to do that. But I think that this is, kind of a tough fight for him. I feel like Morozov is going to be able to win a few scrambles, maybe win a few, exchanges on the feet. But ultimately, I think Umar Nurmagomedov is probably going to be able to either get a rear naked choke or get the decision. I just think he'll probably be able to win more of the grappling exchanges and just get it done that way. So I'm going to go with Nurmagomedov.
Good stuff. Locke, who you got?
Yeah, I think Umair is coming in here with the Nurmagomedov tax, is what I like to call it, which is why he's minus 500 here. People see that last name and they're just like, all right, he must know what the hell he's doing if he's in the UFC, right? But he does have the skills to back it up. Like I think he has a more refined striking game than Khabib as well too, in terms of being a little bit more comfortable throwing kicks and being a little bit more flashy out there. I feel like you got to give the advantage to Morozov in terms of the boxing. I feel like he has the sharper, crisper hands. But again, it ultimately comes down to the wrestling and the grappling. And I feel like that's where Umair is going to want to get this fight. Like Guru touched on, he did get outgrinded by another hot prospect in the UFC, Movsar Evloev, when they were fighting in the M1 days. So I like Umair here. I think he can control it on the feet with his kicks, and then eventually bring this fight to the ground if that's where it needs to go. But I think this is a poor representation of what Sergey Morozov's UFC career is going to look like, because I truly believe he could be successful in this promotion. He's very talented, former M1 champion, like we were saying too. Trains with Shavkat Rakhmonov. If you guys remember, he submitted Cowboy Oliveira way back at UFC 254. Another card that this fight was actually supposed to take place at. I believe Umar stepped out due to COVID. It might have been something else as well. But he didn't end up fighting on that card. We get that card or this fight now. And I like Umar. I think he gets the fight where he wants to get it. And I think he gets it done via decision as well.
Good stuff. Cody Saftic, let us know.
Yeah, it's not that he's not the rightful favorite. It's that if his name is Mike Smith, he's probably a minus 195, but his name's Umar Nurmagomedov, and now he's pushing those 5-1 limits. I think that he's the better fighter in that he's got a slightly more diverse skill set. His striking's a little bit better. He throws a lot better kicks. He loves to throw those question mark kicks, kicks up the middle, push kicks to the body. He's just got a little more versatility. He's a little bit slightly more refined, better crisp technical boxing. Morozov does have the power advantage. If both these guys just end up slugging it, yeah, he could hurt Umar at some point, but Umar's got that wrestling in the back pocket that he should be able to take it to. I agree. When you look at Morozov, he's coming to the UFC, he's making his debut, and that's a tough task. But keep in mind that this is a guy that's 31 years old and has a 16-3 pro record, 19 pro fights, has fought in some very good guys. He is the M1 champion, as you guys are talking about. He's lost to guys like Movsar Evloev, so he's been in there with good competition. He's going to give a good representation of himself. I think the way you go about this is that Umar probably strikes them in pieces, mixes in that wrestling. You got to mix in the wrestling. Josh Reddinghouse went 1-1 with this guy. One, faking the wrestling to set up the strikes in the first fight, knocks him out. And then the second time around, when he fought Morozov, he took him down. He took his back. I mean, as Guru alluded to, he's got this tendency to give up his back and scrambles, and guys are able to take him and control him. What I'm thinking is, we're all talking about Umar as the rightful favorite, but he's too big of a favorite. Don't overlook Morozov, but nobody's here actually picking Morozov, right? So I think he is going to give a good account of himself. But I think that will lead to the ultimate decision loss, right? Especially when you have Khabib in your corner and you have, your whole representation there in Abu Dhabi. If it's a close decision, I see them giving it to Umar. If Umar's striking, probably a little bit better, but he can also rely on that wrestling to secure rounds. And for that reason, even if he does take the back, hopefully he doesn't submit him. Last thing with Umar is that he is kind of a decision machine. You look at his entire record, all of his fights for Fight Night Global back in the day, they're all decisions, right? The 2 times you've seen him in North America, he fought for a World Series of Fighting in PFL, they're both decisions, right? Anytime he's fought in decent, durable level of competition, it's mostly decisions. I agree. In his last fight, he looked like a barn on fire. He immediately takes the back, but he's taking on an undefeated Argentinian opponent who had fought nobody to that point. You go from fighting 1-1 guys in Argentina to coming over to Russia and fighting Umar Nurmagomedov in his own backyard. That'll lead to submission wins. That'll lead to finishes. But truthfully, when he takes on guys on full camps that are preparing for him, he usually just grinds them down and ends up picking a decision victory. So that's what I think he's going to do here. And that moves the line from a 5-1 favorite in Umar's favor to Umar by decisions minus 125. A lot more palatable for me. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Right on. Yeah, Locke, I love that term, man, the Nurmagomedov tax. I absolutely think that's what's going on here. Cody, like you said, he'd probably be a minus 200 guy if it weren't for the name and the, the training camp and just where he comes from, right? I think skill for skill, he's the better fighter. I think it's going to play out far closer than the implied odds, but the pick's going to be Umar Nurmagomedov. Rolling along. This is an interesting one. I've seen a lot of different takes on this one, so I can't wait to hear you guys' opinion. We got Mike Davis going up against Mason Jones, and I think my man Locke's up on this one.
Yeah, so when I first started digging into this fight, I started off with the Mason Jones side of things. Like, I've heard his name a lot, I've seen it on Twitter a lot, and obviously he's tied very closely to that Cage Warriors promotion. So I'm like, let me dust myself up on this guy first before I go over to the Mike Davis side of things. And initially, I'm like, okay, this guy's serviceable. Like, he has good striking, he has a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, a black belt in judo, seems to do well with like controlling guys on the ground, getting the fight there if that's where he needs to do it as well. has the durability, and can strike for sure. And then you throw on the Mike Davis tape and you're just like, okay, I kind of understand why he's the favorite now and why the line had opened as wide as it did. I don't agree that it should have been that minus 300 or 3-1 favorite for Mike Davis. We've obviously seen that line come down now. I think he's around that minus 150-ish range, which is where I think he should be given his layoff as well too. It's been a long time since we saw him fight Thomas Gifford, which was his last fight. And I know a lot of people remember that unfortunate beatdown. You guys saw Calvin Kattar get beat down this past weekend. Go back and watch that Thomas Gifford fight. Probably one of the more brutal beatings that we've ever seen in the UFC. But it's his speed, man. The guy is technically very good on the feet with his striking, but his speed is going to be the killer here for Mason Jones. And I think that's where he truly sets himself apart. And the interesting thing is, I don't normally watch these types of things, but I did come across his IG live that he did today after the weigh-ins. Then he was taking questions from the fans and stuff. And one of the things that a fan brought up was, where do you see yourself beating Mason Jones? And the first thing he said is, this guy's slow. And I truly believe the fact that he even just pinpointed that is going to be huge here, because he knows that he's going to have to rely on his speed here to go out there and piece up Mason Jones. And I personally think that he has the power to actually put him away as well too. So the only thing that gives me a little bit of a hesitancy here with Mike Davis is the layoff. If he was coming off maybe a 4 or 5 month layoff, I'd be a little bit more down to bet him here, especially against a guy who's undefeated like Mason Jones. But there's a completely different skill gap when you're coming from Cage Warriors to the UFC. And I even want to kind of rate the regional scenes all over the world. Like I know that Canada, unfortunately, is probably down here with our TKO promotions, with like grooming some of these guys that we got coming up. Then I got to put maybe the European scene in Cage Warriors, and then the Russian scene, which is probably one of the hardest to get through, at least in my opinion. So yeah, the level of competition is Cage Warriors against, going up against Mike Davis in your first ever UFC fight. There's a reason Mike Davis was a minus 300 favorite going into that Sadiq Youssef fight. And then he goes out there and obviously gets finished or not finished, sorry, loses that fight. But a lot of people are huge on Mike Davis, myself included. And I think the speed is eventually going to be the be all end all for this fight. I think he's going to land on Mason more than Mason's ever been landed on before, and eventually get knocked out as well too. So I got the Mike Davis side, and I like the KO prop as well.
Love it. Cody Saftic, go ahead.
Yeah, so initially I'm on the underdog here, and I just think that the line is way too big. It opened up at Mike Davis minus 300, but then since then you've seen a lot of love coming in from Mason Jones. It's way more, it's probably lined up a lot better now. But now in lines is that, okay, there's not as much there's not as much, bite there, taking some underdog that you're going to back at a decent price that you're going to get a good fight out of. Mason Jones is undefeated. He's got good boxing skills. I think that he's someone that's going to grow and get better in the division. And honestly, there's like this little tide right now coming from Wales. I mean, we remember a time where the only guys were, the just like lower level bangers, so to speak, that came out. But since then, we've got Jack Shore coming to the UFC. Brett the Pikey Johns made it to the UFC, ended up being in Bellator now. You see that Corey McKenna, who trains at Team Alpha Male. You're seeing this new wave of Welsh fighters coming in, and they got a lot of skills. They are growing. They are developing. One thing I got to admit is that, yeah, they are still green. They still need to get to that talent level and test it. Mike Davis has got skills everywhere. Like, not only is he really tight, precise, technical striker standing, he's got awesome wrestling as well. His cardio is also really good. He's got a cast iron chin. So it's like, okay, where can Mason Jones go and win this fight? Well, he needs to box him up, keep the fight standing, and beat him there. But that's a task on its own. Mike Davis being able to probably throw a little more out. I don't know about output, but the more meaningful, heavy shots, he is going to be faster. He does have that wrestling that he could go back to. He does have the experience. He does have the layoff as well. But I think the reason I'm getting cold feet is, and I hate playing too much into the weigh-ins, but if you look at Mason Jones at the beginning of the pandemic, he fights at 155 pounds, looks good at 155. Then he takes his next fight for the Cage Warriors promotion at 170 pounds, becomes a dual weight world champion, just like Conor McGregor did once upon a time, winning the 170-pound championship. And now he's dropped back down to 155 for this one. And he kind of looks zapped on the scales. And so just like Brett Johns, when you saw Brett Johns come to the UFC, it's like, oh man, this guy's got great volume striking. The judo black belt's got, but he's super hittable and he's super flat-footed. He's kind of slow. And a tight, precise, technical striker. Pedro Munoz chopped up circles around this guy. It's like those guys will just eat him up all day. Mike Davis has the potential to do that. So now that the line's a lot closer, like I feel like maybe you could go with Davis. But the fact that I'm flip-flopping the way that I'm having some hesitancy on it, I would just move altogether because I do see some value on Mason Jones. You're just getting less of it by the minute. Money seems to be still coming in on him. But I can't overrule Mike Davis. He is a legitimate fighter. The Sadiq Youssef fight was one of the best Contender Series fights I've ever seen. Then the brothers got to win 2 fights on the regional scene. They don't even give him a contract. They don't even give him a shot back at contender series. He's got to go to the regional scene, win 2. And then you know what the prize is? Why don't you make your UFC debut on short notice, up a weight class against Gilbert Burns? And he still almost lasted 2 rounds. Like, there's a lot to like from Mike Davis. There's a lot to like from Mason Jones. I just think Mike Davis has already been in the show. He's a little more refined. He's got those skills. Whereas Jones is probably going to have to lose that undefeated record at some point, go back to the drawing board, and eventually develop. He's still only 25. He's still got some ways to go. He should get better. So probably lean towards a pass. The fact that I'm flip-flopping, I'm clearly uncertain. I would probably hit a pass in this one. It's going to be maybe fight of the night, maybe the best fight on the card. Going to be really entertaining, but I don't want to force a spot on it.
Makes sense. Guru, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, man, like these guys said, this is a really close fight. I mean, we got Mason Jones, who the one thing you can't say is, I mean, this is a guy in Mike Davis that fought at 145. So Mason Jones is fighting at 170 in his last fight. And you saw in his fight with Sadiq Youssef, I mean, Youssef is a guy that definitely, you know, hits really hard, is a beast for that division, but he was getting dropped by Sadiq Youssef. So I definitely feel like if Mason Jones can land clean, I mean, being the bigger guy, we saw him drop a 170-pound guy with the jab. So I think he could, you know, maybe be, you know, the more durable guy in the matchup. And I think that Mason Jones, I mean, he definitely is hittable. He's the slower guy, but if he can come in here and use his low kicks and try to just rough it up, make it a more of an inside fight, I feel like he could maybe start to wear on Mike Davis a little bit. Mike Davis, you know, he's had a lot of injuries recently. You're supposed to fight Giga Chikadze like 3, 4, 5 times. I mean, it was a lot of times that the fight got canceled. So, I mean, that's something that I kind of take into account too. Mason Jones has been, you know, pretty active. He's been winning, you know, championship fights. So I just feel like Mason Jones is the guy that's kind of more in form right now. I think he's a little bit bigger. He's going to be more durable. And I feel like, you know, he's in terms of the grappling, I think he has the better jiu-jitsu, but I'm not sure if Mike Davis could take him down, then that could, you know, potentially make the fight a lot closer. But I'm going to go with Mason Jones. I just think maybe he'll be able to land the more impactful shots and just kind of, you know, win it on the scorecards, or maybe even get a, you know, a TKO finish.
Right on. Yeah, I tell you guys what, I'm taking Mike Davis in this one. You know, you guys touched on the speed differential, and I think that's going to be how it plays out in this fight. I think that, you know, he's going to be a little too fast for Mason. You know, Mason, undefeated dude coming out of Cage Warriors, you know, looks really good. What's not to love? I just don't think he's, you know, gone up against somebody on Mike Davis's level. I feel like Mike Davis has the skills to nullify a lot of the stuff that Mason's going to attempt to do. And I really do just think at this point in time, Mike Davis is a level or two above where Mason Jones is. I think he goes out there. I think he shows it. I think he pulls away in this fight. I think a potential finish is there. Could be a KO. If not, I think he's going to wrap up a decision. Mason Jones, I like the kid. I just feel like making the jump from Cage Warriors into the UFC. I know Mike Davis isn't like a big name amongst the more casual fans, but man, this guy's got skills. I'm telling you, he's very good. Like Guru brought up, a little bit concerned about the injuries. Maybe he comes in not looking as sharp, not as quick, but man, I thought he looked really good at weigh-ins today. I'm definitely taking Mike Davis in this one. So that takes us up to Jerome Rivera going up against Francisco Figueiredo. And I think we're back to my man Cody getting us going here.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we got Fedor Emelianenko, and we got Alexander Emelianenko. We got Valentina Shevchenko, and we got Antonina Shevchenko. We got Jim Miller and Dan Miller. We got Joe Lozon. We got Dan Lozon. We got Gilbert Burns. But we got Herbert Burns.
Oh, no.
This is the real question here, right? We know we got Davidson Figueiredo. The man is a 125 genius. Just so the guy could compete at 135 and have a lot of success. Then we have Francisco Figueiredo. His 2 year younger than him is his younger brother. And from what you can see on tape, okay, one problem is there's not a whole lot of tape. While Davidson was fighting in the UFC, this kind of guy only averages 1 fight a year on the Brazilian regional scene. There's not a whole lot of tape that you can go by. What you do see, he's certainly not his brother. He doesn't nearly have the power. He doesn't nearly have the timing or the reflexes. He's just, you know, I don't want to say he's there because he's Davidson's brother, but he's coming off a draw. It wasn't overly impressive. It was one of the tougher opponents that he's taken on in his career, and that's what the result from it was. And it's a really blatant cage grab as well. So it shows low ring IQ, but it also shows that he's probably not comfortable fighting in a cage. A lot of it's probably traveling around with Davidson, making sure he's ready, he's making the money, he's winning world championship, and you're meanwhile averaging a fight a year on the sidelines. But Davidson makes a phone call, he gets you in. He's coming in at 31, so he's probably a more polished, refined version of what you're going to get from him. And what we have seen from him, it's not great. He's also coming off a long layoff, so to speak. And I just don't think you can fully trust it or bank it. Again, they opened the line at like -105, plus 105, sorry. And it's like, oh, dog pick, it's his brother, I guess we'll see. But money's coming in on him, he's the favorite. And now you'd have to have some confidence in him. Not necessarily that I do. It's not that I'm picking against him. It's that Jerome Rivera, he's got skills everywhere. He's a decent scrambler. He's got good cardio. His striking's ever improving. He's going to go for it. I know that he's probably got the cardio advantage. I know he's probably got the scrambling, but Francisco, he's a BJJ black belt. Apparently, I haven't not seen it, but it's listed. He is one of the coaches at Team Figueiredo alongside his brother Davidson. So you'd have to imagine that there are some skills there. And Jerome's young, and Jerome is prone to get hit, and Jerome wears a lot of damage. He's finishable. And, it's kind of a head scratcher that he made to the UFC to begin with. I mean, his Contender Series fight, I didn't think he won. And then further from that, he got smoked up from Tyson Nam. So is this the guy that we're going to use to fade Francisco Figueiredo? Like, even if he beats Jerome Rivera, does that mean that he's one of the good MMA siblings of the sport? Is he along the Nate Diaz level, or is he just like all the other examples we use? Like that I couldn't tell you. He's gonna have to prove something here, but I don't want to bet it. I got a bad feeling about this one. It just smells bad. And seeing him at the weigh-ins, like, he didn't look like a physical specimen, which his brother is a physical specimen, right? I made the joke yesterday to Manpreet. I was like, I don't even know if they're related, but facially they have the same forehead. Like, you can tell that they are related for sure. But you see the biceps on him, like they're just like small little. It doesn't look like a very physical guy. And when you look at his fights, the power doesn't translate to where his brother doesn't throw a whole lot of shots, but the few that he does throw, he's a low output fighter. But the ones that he does throw, super accurate, super well timed, and have a ton of power. His brother's not as accurate. His doesn't have nearly as timing. And he just doesn't have the power. I like that he moves from stances, like he'll fight out of his southpaw stance, move back to a orthodox, but it's a little like, it's like he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not super comfortable. Maybe that's the long layoffs between fights. So what I'm getting at is just like, it's not a very trustworthy fight, but I suppose I would lean towards Figueiredo. But on what basis, by the way? That he has a famous last name? Like, that's not everything, right?
Absolutely. Guru, who you going with?
Yeah, it's funny when you're watching like the tape or like the couple fights that you can on Francisco, right? Because it's like he really is like a dollar store version of Davidson, right? He tries to fight the exact same way. I mean, they have the hands down, they're trying to control distance, forward pressure with the feints. But the only difference is, like Cody said, just Francisco doesn't have that same physicality. Like, he doesn't have that same zap in his punches, the same speed, and he doesn't really take guys out. So it's just a low volume fight where maybe he's like landing, some nice shots. He's not hurting the guy, but he's landing some clean punches, and, but it's few and far between, and guys can maybe get inside, land more shots than him, out volume him. And I've seen him taken down in the past too, but it seems like he does kind of lean on his grappling in certain fights. Like the fight where he did get the draw, the third round, he got a takedown, kind of, rode out the position for the whole round. So, I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily going to blow Jerome Rivera out of the water here. I'm really kind of, feeling Rivera could potentially pull the upset, but just, in terms of a pick, I don't want anything to do with this betting wise, but I'm going to go with Figueiredo. I just feel like, Jerome Rivera is still young, and he was really hittable in the fight with Tyson Nam. So if he can't get it to the ground, I mean, maybe Figueiredo could just, pot shot his way to a decision victory. So I'm going to go with Figueiredo for the win.
Right on. Locke, who you taking?
Yeah, I'd be doing a disservice to the viewers if I don't mention two more sets of brothers to kind of paint the picture in terms of where we're going here. We got Alistair Overeem and Valentino Overeem.
Oh, yeah.
and we got Shogun Hua and Ninja Hua. So I'm just throwing that out there. There is a seeming trend within MMA with brothers. So I'm just throwing that out there to begin with. But yeah, these guys are on the nose. Like, how can you confidently make a play here with such little information on Francisco Rivera? Now, if you're one of those lucky people that have access to all of his other fights, great, good for you. But personally, at least from the guys that I've been talking to and everybody in the scene, the only available piece of tape that we have is his last fight against Souza, which was actually a rematch where he lost to him the first time via split decision. And yeah, got a point taken away in this fight due to probably the most blatant cage grab we've ever seen. So I'm glad that the referee stepped in immediately and just didn't even warn him, didn't even say anything to him, just grabbed his wrist, 1 point immediately. And I'm glad. I'm like, all right, we need to get that referee into the UFC because we need less bullshit going on. But in terms of what we're saying, like, or seeing from Figueiredo in that one fight in those 15 minutes is exactly what Guru was saying. Like, he's pot shotting guys, but doesn't really have the technical abilities of his brother, nor does he have the power to do it. And I do question his takedown defense a little bit. I think that if Rivera could get this fight to the ground or even clinch him up against the cage, he could probably win some minutes. he showed off decent volume in his fight against Tyson M until he got deaded within a couple of seconds of that second round. But I think if he goes out there and learns from those mistakes, he could definitely be live here. And we obviously have way more footage available about with Rivera, so I think that you have a little bit more to go off there. But then you're kind of just neglecting the other 14 or 15 fights that Francisco has on his record, right? We can't do that, especially when you're putting money on the line here. So unless you have access to those fights from Francisco earlier in his career, you can't make an educated guess here or even prediction. And that's why we kind of have our hands tied here. We're here to give you guys as much information and knowledge as we can to make you guys, give you guys the information you need to make the best bets possible. But there's just not a lot out there for Figueiredo. So just blindly, I'm going to go with the Rivera. I think from what I've seen from him in terms of being the more active guy, he could definitely go out there, put a little bit more combinations together, put a little bit more volume, at least than what I've seen from Figueiredo on tape. And he could probably get away with the decision victory here. Now, as long as his chin isn't completely compromised, I kind of rank Tyson Nam into like the top percentile when it comes to like knockout power in the lower weight classes. So, I don't think that Francisco is on that level of knockout power. Obviously his brother probably is, but it doesn't seems to translate in the gene pool. So I'll be going with the Rivera side to win this fight by decision, just strictly off of volume, pretty much.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, man, it's a tough one, right? Locke, you nailed it, dude. Incredibly limited tape for Figueiredo. Like, I really don't know what we have in this guy just yet. I'm not going to go out there and blindly assume he's Davison Figueiredo 2.0 or something, right? Which I kind of get the feeling like a lot of people go, hey, it's his brother, he's got to be good, right? Not the case, man. You guys already hammered on the brother narrative, right? And it just seems to be the case. I'm going to end up taking Figueiredo in this one anyway. Yeah, I just haven't liked what I've seen, the reactions when Rivera takes a shot, stuff like that. He's been taken out fairly quickly in fights. But for me, I'm going to use this as one of those test in the waters fights. If Figueiredo comes in here, looks impressive, looks good against Jerome Rivera, I still don't know what we have totally, because I don't think Jerome Rivera is that good. But like I said, we're here to make picks. Give me Figueiredo. But very low confidence pick, just because I'm very lacking on information. I don't really know what we have here in Francisco Figueiredo just yet. Here we go, though. Very interesting matchup here. Dalcha Lungiambula dropping to 185 to take on Marcus Perez. And Guru, I think you're up to the plate.
Yeah, man, I like this fight. I'm kind of a fan of Dalcha Champion, even though I know he's not really the most technical guy. I just, like his fighting style. Even though some of his fights, he can kind of grapple and just kind of be like a wet blanket, but he's just a fun guy to watch for me. And with Maluco Perez, I mean, he didn't even have the Joker thing on today, so he didn't have that going on. But to me, on the feed, Maluco Perez, he's southpaw and he's kind of crazy. He'll throw those, spinning elbows, a lot of elbows, and he has a good, left kick. But other than that, I feel like on the feet, at least, he really, has no rhyme or reason to what he really wants to do out there. He's just kind of, throwing like crazy things, trying to hope something connects. And I feel like, he looked a little bit better on the feet, against Dricus du Plessis, at least before, he got knocked out. And that's kind of similar style to what Dalcha has with, like that du Plessis has, where he kind of explodes in with the big shots. So I feel like, he definitely could hurt Perez here. Perez is coming back kind of fast after, that knockout. And we've seen Perez too. He is a black belt, so I do see that as his path to victory, because if Dalcha grapples, which he does tend to grapple a lot, maybe Perez could catch him in a submission or a sweep and get on top or something. But we've seen Eric Anders, grind out Perez in certain fights. I feel like Dalcha, it's going to be really big physical for 185. If he comes in here, he is a little bit older, so that is something that's at least somewhat concerning. You have to see him and see, how he reacts to the new weight class. But if he comes in here looking good, I could see him getting a knockout, and that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to go with the Dalcha Champion here.
Right on. Locke, who you going with?
Yeah, whenever we get a Marcus Perez fight week, that's the one thing I'm looking forward to, is him bringing out that Joker costume. Like, I don't think he even has the facial structure to pull it off. It's amazing how good he looks as the Joker. They should just cast him in the next one. But in terms of his fighting style, I don't like the fact that he's coming back so quickly from he didn't really get dead in that du Plessis fight, but he did get knocked out. He did get dropped, and it was a pretty significant blow that he took in that fight. That fight was only in October. We're talking about, just about 3 months later, he's stepping in here against Dalcha Champion, who obviously has a bunch of power in himself. Now with Dalcher, you're getting a guy that's coming down to 185 for the first time. But I mean, that first time as a competitor. Last time around, he's supposed to fight Carl Roberson. Roberson pulls out, but he still goes out there and makes the weight. I'm guessing just to get his show money, but good for him to actually make the weight, show us that he can make the weight, because a lot of people are like, how is this guy supposed to make 185? And he did it. He definitely did it. But now the question comes, how is it going to translate to his fights? Does it automatically mean that he's going to go out there and be sucked out by the second or third round? Is that weight cut going to have an effect on him that will affect his performance inside the cage, right? Now, another thing that we have to remember when you're talking about guys that are changing weight classes, the biggest gap is from light heavyweight to middleweight. And I know that they're bigger guys, so it's not as hard to lose that weight compared to guys that are going from like 35 to 25 or vice versa, right? But I still feel like that's a huge step for him. Whereas Marcus Perez has been fighting at 185 for a while now. He's comfortable at the weight class. And the knock on him from me has always been he's more of an entertaining fighter than an actually a fighter that wants to go out there to win. He's fighting to entertain. He's not really fighting to win, it seems, right? But in that last fight against Dricus du Plessis, he came out there, like he comes out there with a war scream to start off the fight in an empty arena too, so you can like hear it echoing off the walls too, which was absolutely insane. But he goes out there, throws a couple of kicks to start off the fight, and you kind of see like a different version than we've really seen from him before. Then obviously his habitual spinning shit comes into play here. He tries to spin against Dricus du Plessis. Du Plessis lands a perfect counter that eventually drops him. And I hope that's kind of the wake-up call that he needs to really go out there and be like, yo, like if I'm actually striking with these guys, landing my kicks because he has a brutal body kick, and even just getting his combinations together, he should be able to get some of these victories. And I like how Guru was touching on the fact that Dalcha does like to lean on his grappling every now and then, but he doesn't seem to do much with that. Like it seems like he's trying to win minutes with those takedowns rather than kind of just setting up ground and pound or advancing positions or anything like that. So I think that Perez will have him beat on the ground. I'm hoping that he's kind of learned from the Eric Anders fight where he doesn't kind of just, lay back and fight a little bit more relaxed than like he usually does. But I'm hoping that he knows like his job is on the line. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Like if he loses her, he's probably going to get cut from the UFC, let's be honest. But I think with everything taken into consideration and the X factor of Dalcha coming down to 185, I'm kind of leaning the Perez side. The only thing that's keeping me away from making it an official bet or anything like that is that it's only 3 months removed since he got knocked out by Dricus du Plessis, right? So I'll still go with Perez. I like the over 1.5 here too. Last time I checked, I thought it was around -145. But I like Perez. I like him to win by decision as well.
Good stuff. Cody Saftic, let him know.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think Perez is a live underdog. Dalcha's just got a lot of things that he's battling. He could come out at 185 pounds and be the new Jared Cannonier, just like, wow, this is where he should have been all along, and the power translate, and the judo black belt's even more effective now because you're so much stronger. You can toss guys around. But we really got to see the scales. Look good at the scales. He looked massively powerful. The stare down, it looked like he was over antsy, like he was really aggressive, almost like he was signifying that I'm going to come at you tomorrow. But it's like, don't come at him too hard in the first round, because even though he just got knocked out by Dricus du Plessis, if you don't knock him out in the first round, carrying that much muscle, being that physically thick, and cutting down to 185 pounds for the first time in your career at age 35 is all a bad sign. You can't also overlook the fact that he hasn't fought in 14 months since the Ankalaev fight. That's his second fight in the UFC. But here's what I'm getting at with Dalcha, right? You look at his run prior. This is a guy that starts MMA at 28 years old, a little bit old, sorry. But as far as EFC Africa, he beats for the most part. He becomes the champion. He looks okay. I wasn't impressed. Well, he beats Alan Bodo, who we all know in the UFC now, but beats Stuart Austin. Again, these are non-level UFC opponents, even though one of them actually got there. Andrew Van Zyl, that's not an impressive fight for him, in my opinion. Wins a split decision. He takes a year off after that Andrew Van Zyl fight, which he didn't look very good in, by the way. Debuts against Daquan Townsend. Now, rewatching the Daquan Townsend fight, he goes out there, he takes Daquan down 4 times. That's the path to victory he should use against Marcus Perez, is go out there and use that judo, get some takedowns, and hold him down. But he doesn't do anything with the takedowns. I mean, his ground and pound's kind of short, but it's like the striking numbers, right? So the first round against Daquan Townsend, he lands 5 significant strikes. In the second round against Daquan Townsend, he landed 10 significant strikes. And then in the third round, he got the knockout against him. Then the Magomed Ankalaev fight, wouldn't you know it? In the first round, he lands 5 significant strikes. Well, the second round, he gets taken down, so he only manages to land 2. And then in the third round, Ankalaev snaps him in the face with that kick, beauty head kick. And that's all she wrote for Dalcha. But he's super low volume. So he could have a ton of power, but he doesn't really let his hands go. His cardio is not all that good. And for somebody that has that judo black belt, judo's more of like a throwing art. You're going to throw a guy offensively to the ground. But beyond that, like, how good's his ground game? Whereas we know Marcus Perez is durable, was knocked out by Dricus, okay? First and foremost was. But that's the first time the guy got knocked out. And to that point, his chin had looked pretty good. Also, the Dricus knockout was one of those situations like he ran headfirst into an elbow and, you know, he made a bonehead mistake, and Dricus capitalizes on it. Against Dalton just might not. But then right as I talked to myself, like, you know what? Perez is a live underdog. Maybe I pull that trigger. Maybe I go with Perez. The thing that kills me with Marcus Perez, and he did against, not only did he do it against Eric Anders, but he did against Wellington Turman, is when he does get taken down, he just accepts it. He's not trying to get back up. He might be trying to go for a submission, but the submission don't stick, and he just gives up valuable round time. And seeing Dalka go out there against Daquan Townsend and just shoot the takedowns, you know, get him to the ground, that's the path to victory. Against Magomed Ankalaev, you're not going to be able to do it. One, he's, in my opinion, top 5 light heavyweight, and that's the second thing. He's a light heavyweight. Now dropping down to 185, you're going to be bigger, you're going to be stronger. This fool's coming in on a week's notice. Go out there, get him, throw him to the ground, at least win 2 of those rounds, don't gas out, get the victory. But, you know, I know I sound like I'm passing a lot of these fights, but there's just better spots. Like a lot of these are close. They're dicey. I don't want to bank on a 35-year-old cutting down that 20 pounds for the first time, coming off a year-plus long layoff, having never beaten a credible opponent. Like, those are all massive red flags for me. But the line's not terrible. It's just like it's tough to have the utmost confidence in it.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a very risky fight, right? Red flags for me on the Dalka side, right? A guy that at 205, you know, like you said, Cody, cut an extra 20 pounds. This guy was already having, you know, cardio issues, just didn't seem to have the gas tank, right? You know, very dangerous early on. And a guy that's dangerous at all times. I mean, just look at this guy. Explosive as hell. He connects on the chin. He clips you with that big shot. He's going to put you out. I don't care who you are. And Perez is a guy that we've seen KO'd. You know, but for me, I just got to wonder. It's another one of those fights that I'm going to just, you know, let me see what Dalka looks like at 185. I think Marcus Perez is a good test. But at the same time, I do think Marcus Perez is probably the better fighter. You know, I think that there's a good chance Dalka looks decent early, but we see him begin to fade. We see him start slowing down in the first round. Absolutely see him slow down in that second or third round. Marcus Perez is a guy who's found a lot of good submissions. I think there's a chance that plays out. I also think there's just a chance Marcus Perez begins to outpace him, put up the numbers, out-volume him. You know, I probably don't see this fight going to the scorecards. I think Dalka either gets it done early or Perez finishes him in that second or third round. I'm going to take the dog, though. Give me Marcus Perez. I just need to see Dalka come down, get it done at 185, look good, prove me wrong, and we'll move on from there. So the pick's going to be Marcus Perez, but from a betting standpoint, man, just too many question marks for me. I think it's a total pass. Okay, we're still on prelims. We got Mudaerji going up against Zarrukh, Adashev, and who do we got up? Is it Guru or is it my man Locke?
I'll take it.
You take it.
Let's roll with me. Let me go.
He wants it.
Yeah, I want it. Yeah, the longer that this week has gone on, or at least the last couple of days, I've been kind of stumped in terms of which way Mudaerji is going to win this fight. Obviously, I think Mudaerji wins. That's for sure. But well, not for sure that he's going to win, but that's kind of where the side that I'm leaning on. But I feel like we got to kind of take a step back in terms of thinking that Zarrukh Adashev just has a horrible chin. You know what I mean? Again, like I spoke about Tyson Nam a little bit earlier, I think that guy has probably one of the, you know, he's in the top percentile in terms of guys that have power at the lower weight classes, right? Mudaerji, obviously 11 out of 13 of his wins have come by KO, but then you have that like Andre Sukumtat fight rolled up in there as well, right? I could see this just being a little bit more dragged out where he's kind of just picking apart Zarrukh Adashev from the outside. He has a huge reach advantage here as well, too. Huge height advantage, too. But Zarrukh actually looked pretty damn good on the scales, but this is the first time we're seeing him at that 125-pound limit in the UFC. Obviously didn't miss weight this time around, too. Wasn't taking this fight on short notice. I feel like, you know, he's a 16-3 kickboxer as well, too. So he has a little bit of chops when it comes to the striking game. However, he just failed to have any striking defense when he threw that poor leg kick against Tyson Nam and got absolutely blasted to the moon. I'm not sure if Mudaerji has that type of Tyson Nam KO power. Like, the Malcolm Gordon fight. That's the last time we saw him knock somebody out, right? Me and Cody know Malcolm Gordon can't take a shot. He's probably the most uncomfortable fighter in the striking realm. So he's able to get him out of there really quickly. And I think people are running with that narrative like, okay, look at Mudaerji, who just got this guy out there really quickly. And Zarrukh Adashev on the flip side was the one that got out of there quickly on the knockout side, right? So I'm reeling myself back from Mudaerji absolutely stiffing this guy right off the bat. I think we will see him use that advantage of the reach and the height and kind of kick his way around and stay away from the power of Adashev as well. Adashev's striking style is mainly based around his kicks as well too. So maybe that's his approach here, kind of kick at the legs of Mudaerji, kind of set up his power hands as well too. But I feel as though that if he's not careful with the striking defense, has his hands up, has his chin tucked, Mudaerji is absolutely going to find that chin too, right? My thing is, I'm not sold on Mudaerji having one punch knockout power. Now, I feel like he could rock him, he could hurt him, but I feel like this is going to be more of a decision victory than it's actually going to be, a quick one round whopping from Mudaerji. So I'll go with Mudaerji having the more technical performance, maybe even mixing in a couple of takedowns if he wants to play a little bit safer. Maybe we see him pull off a submission. He has one submission victory on his record. Again, Adashev coming from a kickboxing background, maybe not as refined on the ground. We have seen him on the ground in his Bellator fights. He seems like he's kind of making improvements there, but he still shows a little bit of unintelligence when it comes to that side of the game, right? Like he's trying to take guys' backs, but he's like too high, so he falls off, or not really holding top position well enough either. So it's funny because Mudaerji is like the belle of the ball now. Coming into that fight against Louis Smolka, everybody's just writing him off. Oh, look at this guy getting signed to the UFC, coming off a loss. He's probably just a chump that the UFC is trying to get some Chinese talent in there to try to build up that market. So he gets submitted by Louis Smolka. And he goes out there and puts on a clinic against Andre Soukhamthath, and now he's the belle of the ball. Like I said, everybody wants to jump on the Mudaerji train, but I think we need to reel it back in terms of thinking that he's going to go out there and smoke this guy out in that first round. I think we'll see a decision victory here from Mudaerji. Plus 290-ish for a decision prop. Not too bad either. Or even seeing this fight go to a decision. I think that might catch a lot of people off guard. So I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion that Zarrukh Adashev's chin is just gone. It's just Tyson Nam being as a huge power puncher that he is. So I'll go with Mudaerji. I still think he gets it done. Minus 470 is a little bit too crazy for me, but that prop is not too bad either. So I'll go with Mudaerji here.
Right on, Cody Saftic. Tell him about it.
Yeah, again, it's just a wide line price on Mudaerji, especially when you consider these technically coming in on short notice. So originally, Adashev was supposed to take on Jeff Molina from Dana White's Contender Series fame, and once that fight falls apart, he gets a much tougher task in Mudaerji, who comes in here. But to say he's a 5-1 favorite, he is on short notice. Adashev is a striker primarily. As far as technically goes, Adashev would have the technical advantage, right? He is a 16-3 pro kickboxer. He did fight for glory. He does have a long traditional striking martial art base. And you look back in 2011, 2012, he'd win a bunch of these little international kickboxing tournaments. So he does have that amateur pedigree on top of that. He should be comfortable. Mudaerji just goes out there and just makes it a kickboxing battle the whole time. Why doesn't Adashev have a chance? Yeah, Tyson Nam knocked him out, but Tyson Nam has a hellacious amount of power, and that was a case of Adashev coming in on short notice. So I would expect some improvements out of him, but I think the reason why people are getting behind Mudaerji and him being the belle of the ball, the darling everyone's eyes, so right now, is that realistically, when he came to the UFC, this guy should not have been there. He's coming off a loss on a Chinese regional, but the card's in China. They need local guys. They need guys to fill out the card. They bring him against Louis Smolka. It's an unbelievably difficult fight for him, and sure enough, he loses. It's seen the progression since then. It's seen the time that he puts in since then. He's only 24 years old. I mean, his UFC debut, he's 21. He's one of those ENBO kids that was, essentially it's like an orphanage in China. Take these kids and just train them up until they're teens, and then send them to the best camps in the world. And with Mudaerji, he's spent time in Dagestan, shoring up his wrestling, so that he's not getting taken down. He comes in this fight with a 7-inch reach advantage over Adashev, and he's just a really slick, getting more comfortable every time out southpaw. And I think that's his advantage is not going to be the striking department, because he could catch Adashev, or maybe he catches him and he's somehow able to hurt him and defeat him in the striking realm, but it's using that wrestling. You don't see it a whole lot, but go back to the Andre Soukhamthath fight. The first 2 rounds, Mudaerji is putting a clinic on this guy. By the way, Andre Soukhamthath is a pretty serviceable striker, but he's just getting pieced up with Mudaerji left and right, winning all the striking exchanges. In the third round, he just effortlessly catches a kick, throws Soukhamthath to the ground, and gets on top of him. And that's when you realize it's oh, damn, this kid knows how to grapple a little bit too. That's the key here. Like, Adashev is a one-dimensional kickboxer. So why kickbox it with him the whole time? This is an MMA fight. Kickbox it with him in pockets, in pieces, but take this guy down. And when you do, you'll smash him. And then the last thing here is with kickboxing, you're fighting three-minute rounds. So you're fighting 9 minutes. You get your in between. It's more of like a sparring session. You got the 12-ounce gloves on, maybe 8-ounce gloves at most. But coming from that to coming to MMA, where it's like the grappling transitions tire you out. These lifelong kickboxers, they're so used to throwing punch-kick combinations that if that's all they do, it won't really tire them out all much. They can do that in the gym all day long. It's when they got to fight for underhooks and overhooks and go to the ground and scramble and get back up and get to a hip and keep working. That's what fatigues all their muscles. And all of a sudden, the striking kind of goes out the back door. They're just a lot more fatigued. So Mudaerji's got to fight a good game plan. But if he does that, he's got the skill set to get this victory. Don't love the price, but what am I going to do? Pass on all these because I don't like prices on most of them? I got to end up with Mudaerji.
Right on. Guru, who you taking?
This one, yeah, I got to go with the big favorite too. I got to go with Mudaerji, and I do agree with Cody. I feel like he should try to mix in the grappling and the wrestling, and just at least give Adashev that different look. But I do feel like on the feet, he could compete too, because I watched a few of Adashev's, kickboxing fights. Like, he does have a fight, with Julio Arce that he had, and he lost that one, and he was significantly smaller than Arce, but he's kind of just wild on the feet. Like, he'll throw a real nice counter left hook, but he's super wide and throws a lot of like wild strikes. So I feel like, they're kind of similar on the feet, where they're kind of just like, they're both, trying to look for that one shot, and they're kind of wild. But I think Mudaerji's actually, a little bit slicker, and he definitely has that big reach advantage. So I feel like Mudaerji, as long as he just doesn't get hit with, a counter left hook or a spin or a big shot from Adashev, he's probably just going to be the better fighter all around and be able to get the win. He's younger. He should be improving, but I do agree with them. I think the line is wide, because I think a lot of that is also because of, his performance against Tyson Nam. And you saw in that fight, like, if you look at the weigh-in picture from when he weighed in versus Tyson Nam to when he weighed in today, I mean, it's like a big significant difference. So I feel like he will probably, have a better account here, but I still got to go with, the big favorite, Mudaerji.
Yeah, Guru, I think you nailed it. I mean, Adashev's got to look better than that debut, right? I mean, it went about as bad as it could go. Unfortunately, went in there, tried to go toe-to-toe with Tyson Nam, and it just that's not the right move. Mudaerji, though, man, I really like this guy. Like you said, Guru gets in there, strikes really long, super fast. Adashev, though, glory kickboxing background, man. I think this fight definitely plays out much closer than the implied odds, but I got to go Mudaerji in this one. This is a kid, Cody, you talked about, man, so young, so gifted at this point. I think we're going to see tremendous growth. Cody, you also talked about, him rounding out his training, moving around different camps, all good stuff, man. What's not to love about this kid? I'll tell you, the price tag, it is what it is, though. I got to take Mudaerji in this one. Adashev, it would be a very impressive win for me if Adashev came in here and took out Mudaerji. So we're rolling along in it. We're still preliminate. Ricky Simón against Gaetano Pirrello. And I think Cody's up on this one.
Yeah, this is another fight that, you get cold feet. You're thinking about it. Ricky Simón, I have seen him get chin checked a few times. Obviously, the one that everyone will remember is the only KO loss on his record, which is a Uriah Faber, 40 years old, coming off the shelf. No one really expected it, but that is a really back-class level opponent. The other one, Anderson dos Santos, he got rear naked choked, but in that Titan FC fight, he was a 4-1 favorite. He did get dropped by Anderson dos Santos. Ricky Simón is one of these guys that could get caught. Gaetano has a tremendous amount of power. I mean, he's got a credible kickboxing background, but as far as MMA goes, he shows 11 KO victories and 15 overall wins. So he's got power. He's got knees up the middle. He could theoretically catch Ricky Simón, but this is 2021, man. At this point in time, we know what wins fights, and what wins fights is a much superior grappling advantage, wrestling advantage, cardio advantage, and a willingness to go to it. And that's exactly what Ricky Simón does. I mean, he does not mind chain wrestling all night. He'll shoot 15 takedowns if he needs be. He'll stick on you like glue, and he'll keep going. He has good cardio. He's just got to mind his P's and Q's when they are standing, not get too coy out there, not to get too pretty, maybe get caught by something, but just get on this guy and grind him and get after him over and over again. Then, yeah, Ricky Simón does have the skill set that he should get the victory. Am I a little bit worried that he does get caught? Listen, he is a short guy, similar to Joaquin Buckley last time out, right? In hindsight, this is all in hindsight, right? Alicio Di Chirico is like a pretty good sized middleweight. He's fought guys that are tall like Kevin Holland. He's 6'1". He's a big framed fighter. Whereas Joaquin Buckley's like they call him 5'11". No fucking way. He's like 5'9", 5'10", the absolute most. and he looked like Paul Semtex Daly in there with bigger biceps. And it was like that head kick only really had to come halfway. But a head kick's a head kick. And something like that lands lopside your head, you're going to be hurt. Ricky Simón has been hurt in the past. He has been hurt by lesser strikers. Gaetano figures that he could hurt him. But listen, don't make this a striking match. Ricky's just got to get on him like glue over and over, rinse and repeat. And he does have the cardio that he can do that. This is a guy that choked out Merab Dvalishvili with 0 seconds left on the clock. Like, Ricky will go for it the whole way, and that's going to be a big part here. So again, just make this a grappling match, make it a wrestling match, even if it's boring for the audience. Take Gaetano down, and he should be able to rinse repeat his way to a victory.
Absolutely. Guru, who you got?
Yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, unless Gaetano gets an early knockout, which is possible. I mean, you do see Ricky Simón like against Ray Borg. He's making Ray Borg look like he's like a really good boxer, which you've never seen Ray Borg land shots like that in the UFC before. So Ricky Simón is a hittable guy, and I will say at the weigh-ins, I don't really like how Ricky Simón looked. I feel like he didn't look the best at the weigh-ins. So Gaetano has a chance to land a knee up the middle, a big shot, but I feel like I watched a few of his fights. He gets really tired in these grappling exchanges pretty quickly. I feel like he only has like 3-4 minutes of grappling cardio, and he's taking this fight on short notice. It was supposed to be Brian Kelleher coming in here fighting Ricky Simón. I think they moved the fight 1 week. It was supposed to be last week, so he got a little bit of time, but not a lot. And I feel like Ricky Simón, just if he can get past that, first couple of minutes, get the takedown, I think that he's going to have like a huge chance to win. I don't really see, a large path to victory for Gaetano after that, because I think once Simón takes him down, land some shots, maybe, Simón doesn't have the best top control, but he could hit some mat returns, get him tired. And I think once that happens, he'll start to be able to cruise to a decision and or maybe even, get a late finish, depending, if Gaetano gets that tired enough. So I think Simón will be able to get this one done.
Absolutely. Lock of the night. Who you taking?
Yeah, I like Simón here too. Again, another big favorite, but rightfully so. I'm not really impressed with what I've been seeing from Pirrello. Somebody actually compared him to Daniel Tamor, and I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. In terms of this guy has some solid striking, but his gas tank looks a little bit iffy. Doesn't really look the greatest on the ground either. Doesn't look great on the ground, but his takedown defense looks even worse, to be honest. So I think that Ricky Simón, even like if that's the first thing he goes out there and does is shoot a double leg, I think he'll more than likely complete it. And I think that's pretty much all he needs. I don't know if I'm really diminishing this guy's skills in my head, but I really just don't see him having anything for Simón other than possibly knocking him out. Obviously, that's a possible outcome here, but I think that's very low percentage. If Ricky Simón is smart, and you got to believe, like, coming in here against Pirrello, it's almost a lose-lose situation. Like, you lose, you lost, but you win. You beat a UFC newcomer that doesn't even look like he deserves to be in the UFC. So the best thing that you can do is go out there and get this guy out of there as quick as you can and as dominantly as you can. So I believe that's what we're going to see here. Like, get a takedown probably within the first minute or so, and really start to do some work from on top, whether it's ground and pound, whether it's going for a submission. I'm having a hard time deciding which side he's going to be going with, because it seems like he'll have almost anything at his disposal once he gets this fight to the ground. So I don't see Pirrello having much off of his back, and I don't think that we're going to see him, reverse or even get back to his feet, to be honest. Like, Ricky Simón, like Guru said, has shown some shaky top control in the past, but I don't think that this Pirrello guy is going to have much for him off of his back. I think that Simón will do pretty much anything that he wants. So I like the Simón spot. I even like the under 2.5 in case you want to cover either outcome, because I think both guys, their win conditions are a finish. Even if Pirrello catches him, you get plus 125 for that. You know what I mean? In terms of taking the under 2.5. And then with Simón, I still think he gets him out of there. You're getting plus 125 on that instead of taking that minus 400 that he's currently at as well. But yeah, I think Simón is very, very live for a finish here. I'm still having trouble pinpointing whether it's going to be a KO or a sub, but either way, you can go with the inside the distance at plus 155 as well too. But I think this is Simón's fight. There's no way I really see him losing this fight. So I'm taking him to win this fight, even in the first round. I'm going out there and saying I think he goes out there, starches this dude in the first round, and really makes a statement and reminds people why he was as heavily touted as he was coming into the UFC. So I'm going with Ricky Simón, first round, absolute mollywhopping.
Ooh, I like that take. Lock of the night. Yep, I'm on Ricky Simón as well. Gaetano, I feel like, pretty much it's a puncher's chance, and don't get me wrong, 11 KOs out of 15 wins. It's impressive stuff, you know what I mean? But Ricky Simón, UFC mainstay, man. A guy that, this is a wide line, and we got a lot of really heavy favorites here. But Ricky Simón, man, I talk about it a lot. If there's one style that I feel good backing my money on, it's a guy like Ricky Simón that you can bank on knowing he's going to go out there. He's going to hit those takedowns. He's going to grind. He's going to do what he does. Has he come up short? Yeah. Has he been knocked out? Oh, yeah, totally. Knocked out as that massive favorite over the California kid, the 40-year-old California kid at that. Is what it is, though, man. Ricky Simón's the guy for me in this spot. Really see him winning. I feel like it's more, Locke, I think you said it. If not, let me say it for you. I feel like it's Ricky Simón's fight to lose more than it is Gaetano's to go out there and win. Maybe he pulls off the upset, but for me, man, I'm definitely going to be backing Ricky Simón in this spot. So the final prelim, we got Omari Akhmedov going up against Tom Breese, and I think it is Guru.
Yeah, man. I mean, this fight was supposed to be last week. The UFC gave me, another week to try to look over and figure it out, and I still don't have a good read on this shit, man. So, I mean, this is a fight that, in terms of a bet or a play, I'm not one of these people that's confident on either side because, if you think about it, really, I mean, Tom Breese is the favorite, but people were picking KB Bhullar to beat Tom Breese. A lot of people. That line was, I think, like a pick 'em. So, if that fight didn't happen where KB Bhullar, got knocked out with the jab in the first round, I mean, Omari Akhmedov definitely would be, a decent favorite in this fight. So looking at it in that sense, I mean, Tom Breese really hasn't fought nearly the level of competition that a guy like Omari Akhmedov has or gotten the wins. Akhmedov has beaten some really high-level guys, and you haven't really seen Tom Breese face a lot of grapplers throughout his UFC run. When he fought Keitaro Nakamura, that's the only guy that's been able to take him down, but you saw when he fought Brennan Allen, he made some mistakes, in scrambles, ended up on his back and kind of got pounded out pretty quickly. So, I mean, Omari Akhmedov is a guy that took down Chris Weidman multiple times in that fight, man. I mean, he took him down 3-4 times. So, I mean, would I be shocked if he went in here and was able to take down Tom Breese and control him on top or get in his face and kind of, limit the volume of, Breese because he likes to stay long? I mean, not really, but I do feel ultimately, I mean, Tom Breese, the fight's going to be one to me because I do think that Omari is going to take him down. I really do. I feel like he's going to be able to take him down at least early on. And if Tom Breese can, use his leg locks or his jiu-jitsu game, he has a black belt to sweep, get back up to his feet, then I think he's going to be able to win the fight. I think he'll be able to eventually, get to Omari on the feet who throws a little bit wide. But, I mean, I feel like a lot of people are blowing Tom Breese, like having this big cardio advantage a little bit out of proportion because he gets a lot of quick knockouts too. Like, I think almost all of his wins are in the first round. So I don't know if necessarily he's going to be like so much fresher in that third round than Omari Akhmedov is and just take over the fight. But I'm just going to go with Tom Breese because I feel like he is the younger guy and I think that he is the better striker. And on the ground, if he can use his jiu-jitsu to, get back up to his feet, he should be able to win. So I'm going to go with him, but, not confident whatsoever.
Right on. Lock of the night, who you taking?
Yeah, one narrative that I always have coming into a Tom Breese fight is I always say, I truly believe that he's a top 10 guy. I think he has all the skills in the world to go out there and be a top 10 guy when he's on his best day. Now it's all about, is it going to be his best day, right? That's his main concern. It's always the mental game with that guy. We don't know whether he's even going to show up to begin with. Like, yeah, I believe it was the Ian Heinisch fight that he pulled out on the day of because he had an anxiety attack or whatever it was, right? But once he's really, truly able to go out there and fix those issues, and I feel like this is a big one for him. If he can go there, make the walk, and get a W over Omari Akhmedov here, I would be much more comfortable playing him at -160. If he was the dog here, he would almost be a no-brainer bet for me considering his skills alone. But then when you throw in the X factors of his mental state, that's a little bit too much to ask, especially when you're talking about -160, right? Or -150, whatever he's currently at. But on the feet, absolute mismatch. His striking looks amazing. That's his bread and butter pretty much. Uses his jab very well. His 1-2 down the middle is really nice. His kicks are really good too. Whereas Omari Akhmedov, a little bit more, rudimentary with his striking. It's just overhand rights, hooks, blitzing hooks, wide shots, kind of like the wrestler striking style. That's kind of what I like to lump those guys into, where they just don't really, it seems like they don't even know how to throw a jab. And that's very unfortunate, especially for a wrestler when a jab is almost the key to getting a takedown as well too, or at least one of the better setups that you can throw out there to get these takedowns. And I feel like it's going to be a little bit harder for him to close the distance here and get Breeze down over and over again. He might be successful in that first round, but I think it's only going to get harder. If you guys remember, like, Breeze is a big dude. He's going to be a little bit tougher to take down, and I like the fact that he's taking these out of competition grappling matches to kind of refine his game in that side too. So it shows his dedication to the sport in terms of refining his whole MMA game. Again, I think he's a top 10 talent if he shows up. My concern is he going to win the minutes, right? Like, if Omari is successful in closing the distance and pushing him up against the cage and getting him to the ground, Omari doesn't really do much damage from on top. It's more so just controlling these guys. And if he's able to do that for like 3.5 to 4 minutes in a round, he's probably going to win that. But that like 1 minute on the feet could be hell or high water for this guy. Like, I think it's going to be really bad in terms of taking the strikes from Tom Breese, who should be able to absolutely pick him apart. I like Guru was touching on. I don't think that Breeze has a crazy cardio advantage here, because we still need to see more from him later in fights. But just based off of what we've seen from Omari Akhmedov, you got to believe it's got to be slightly better than that. But you need these facts in front of you first before you actually make these assumptions. But with Omari, we haven't seen him stopped in the third round in a long time. I believe Sergio Moraes was the last guy to finish him in the third round, and that was years ago now. He still struggles in these third rounds, but he's still able to keep it together enough to kind of see the judges' scorecards and then win those first two rounds. But with Tom Breese, he's going to have a lot to deal with in that third round with the striking that's coming his way, especially if he's not able to get the takedown or at least hold him up against the cage. So my pick is Breeze here, but I don't really want to put my money on him just because of the X factors I laid out at the top here, which is his mental state. Like, if he comes out here and looks good, especially in those first couple minutes, and you're like, of course, he's probably going to look like a minus 300 now, stuffing takedowns and maintaining the distance. But I'm not risking my money to find out. Maybe this is a live betting opportunity. Watch this fight, see how that first round plays out. And if it doesn't look like Breeze is completely wanting out of there, maybe he could be a better bet in that second and third round, possibly even get him at dog money too, because, Omari will more than likely be most successful with his takedowns in that first round. After that, it could start to steer towards Breeze. So I'll be watching it from a live betting perspective, but I will be going with Breeze and possibly even getting a late finish here.
Right on. Cody Saftic, who you got?
Yeah, you just can't trust Tom Breeze, I don't think. Even though it might look like he's got the skills, first and foremost, it's like, looks like he's got the skills against whom, right? Luis Dutra Jr. looked good in that fight. All right, where's he at? Thal Pendred? Oh, yeah, looked good in that one. Keita Nakamura fight? What people don't remember is that Tom Breeze was a minus 1150. A minus 1150 favorite over Keita Nakamura. And there's an argument that he lost that fight. Keita Nakamura takes him down 3 times. He's able to control him on the ground. Keita's a small, tiny little welterweight, and yet he has a lot of success against Tom Breeze. People seeing that Tom Breeze fight were like, oh, no, this guy's a fraud. And so he was an even money favorite, where he's like minus 115 over Sean Strickland's next time out, and he lost a split decision. After that fight, he took 2 full years off. He came back and looked again. There's all the skills. In a quick first-round knockout over Dan Kelly, 40-plus-year-old Dan Kelly, 4-time Olympian, no knees. And crazy thing of all, Dan Kelly never even attempted one takedown on him. And that's the thing. Thal Pendred didn't try to take him down. Luis Dutra Jr. didn't really take him down. And Sean Strickland, he didn't even really care to try to take him down. None of these guys have really tried to take down Tom Breeze. So TriStar will tell you, he's a legitimate BJJ black belt. You see him compete on these jiu-jitsu shows while he's not fighting in MMA. Looks like he's a good black belt. His technical boxing, it's sharp. He's got a good jab. He's got a good right hand. His cardio, I'm not sure how good it is. His heart, well, that's definitely something you got to consider, because you're pulling out of fights before the Ian Heinisch fight with an anxiety attack. The doctor comes in the back, checks him over, and is like, medically, he is unfit to fight. It's like, that's a hurdle that you have to come over. And he overcomes that hurdle, comes back, another long year-long layoff to take on KB Bular, in which he gets a first-round knockout. If he's beating you up in the first 2-3 minutes, he needs to get that finish. That's when his confidence is high. When his confidence high, he's fighting good. In the other fights, when Sean Strickland starts to push a little bit against him, he falters. The Brandon Allen fight, it's like as soon as he ends up on the ground, he just accepts it. He accepts the bad position, and he gets TKO'd from that bad position. With Omari Akhmedov, if you are going to beat him, chances are you're not knocking him out in the first round. Why? Because he's been knocked out twice, both times late in the third round when he was completely tired, which, by the way, boys, he gets completely tired in all of his fights. What I'm saying is, knocking him out, yeah, guys have taken him out late, but not early. And he just comes at you for 10 strong minutes. He's got a much better wrestling. He's one of those guys that, you're good off your back. Yeah, but he's so short and stocky and powerful and not trying to advance position that like you don't need to throw submission attempts. You need to try to get back up. He's not going to give you much room to work with. And when you look at him, he's not getting submitted. He just went toe-to-toe with Chris Weidman in a fight that he could have won, didn't win, you know, call it bad cardio, call it bad ring IQ, call it Chris Weidman having a little bit left in the tank. But it's like he gave a good account of himself. He took Chris Weidman down 3 times. That's all positive. You look at other fights in his career, he's taken down guys like Ian Heinisch. He's taken down big, strong opponents before. He's had success. He is going to get tired. But if he gets tired and he's up 2 rounds and he loses the third to Tom Breese, no big deal. And the other thing is we don't really know that Tom Breese has got the cardio to go late and to push for these late finishes. And the long layoffs, even coming out and beating KB Bular in a minute 42, that does nothing for you. Would have been nice to get like 2-3 rounds in. You know what Sean Strickland did when he come back from the motorcycle accident? He went a full 3 rounds out there, got 3 rounds, laughing, smiling, pointing at the guy, and then he comes out in his very next fight against Brendan Allen and washes this dude because it was like, oh, I got the cage time, I got my feel back, you know. Breeze didn't do that. He went out there, he took down KB Bular quick, which is, I guess, in hindsight, he was expected to do. There's levels to this, and KB clearly wasn't there yet. But that doesn't do as much for you. So he still got something to show. And what are they giving him? They're giving him a top 15 guy. And the last thing, I hadn't even really thought about this, but I love analyzing facts like this. My boy Locke brought this up last night. Breeze had the anxiety attack. And then when he came back and fought KB Bular, it's an empty arena. And he went on record afterwards being like, I really like that. I liked that there was nobody there. It was calming. It was cool. And it was like, you know what? That would make sense. Why, for a guy that probably overthinks things and gets a little bit anxious, why no? But they're letting people in the arena. And you watch that from last Saturday's card. Like, they're loud. And you know who they're going to be loud for? Omari Akhmedov. They're going to be loud for him, bud. So, yeah, things like that could cause Tom Breese to overthink it. And if he does and he drops those first 2 rounds on the basis of some takedowns, I would say Omari Akhmedov is a live dog. Is the underdog I love the most on the card? No, but I would say that he's definitely got a shot to pull off a decision victory. Not a TKO victory, not a submission victory. The guy's a decision machine, but he knows how to get victories.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you, Cody. I'm taking Omari Akhmedov in this one, especially as an underdog. I just feel like, level of competition, night and day. Omari Akhmedov, yeah, he's had some losses in there, but, he's just such a grinder. And we do need to talk about the gas tank because in the 3rd round, it's going to be super sketchy if it gets that far. I'm sure Omari's going to be tired. He's going to be huffing and puffing. He's going to be gassing. But I do think Omari Akhmedov's got what it takes to hit these takedowns. I think he wins the first 2 rounds. Like I said, 3rd round could be totally up for debate. But then again, maybe Tom Breese comes in here and looks good. But, we've talked about it. I have to mention it as well. It's the anxiety issues. It's the crazy stuff like that. I mean, what's so insane to me is name one other guy we've seen have such nerve, such anxiety, getting ready to make that walk that a doctor said, I can't allow this man to go out there and fight. I'm sure everybody's heart's pumping. Unless you're a stone cold killer, I'm sure you've got an elevated heart rate. You're sweating. There's nerves, all that stuff. But to be on that level where they won't let you make that walk, I mean, that's just beyond my realm of comprehension, truly. And I just feel like that's always an X factor. But I've said to myself this: if Tom Breese can come out here, win this fight against Omari Akhmedov, look cool as a cucumber, look good doing it, I'm going to leave that all in the past. I'm not going to bring it up anymore. I feel like enough time will have passed. And like I said, this will be an impressive win. I still just feel like I got to add that caveat. I got to add that asterisk. I'm going to take Omari Akhmedov in this one. I like him as an underdog. Like I said, I think he gets it done using the wrestling and the takedowns. Okay. We finally made it to the main card, boys. A 14-fight card. We finally made it to the main card. We got, it's a banger, Lerone Murphy going up against Douglas Andrade. And I think we're up to my man Locke on this one.
Yeah, this is another fight where I'm having issues figuring out the method of victory here. I'm obviously taking the big favorite here in Lerone Murphy. I think he's a solid play here. And I think that has to do with a couple things. Like, he's obviously on his way up. With Douglas Silva de Andrade, we haven't really seen much of him. I think Cody brought it up last night. This guy's been around since 2013 in the UFC, has only had 7 fights, which is absolutely crazy considering, how long he's been in the UFC. Like, I remember a lot of people kind of being high on this guy coming into the UFC. I believe he was 23-0, had a crazy record where everybody's just like, okay, this guy is absolutely insane. And then he goes out there and loses to Zubair Tukhugov. And then after that, he loses to Rob Font via guillotine choke. And then after that, his next loss was to Petr Yan, 135-pound champ. No shame in that. We obviously know what level Petr Yan is at this point in time. But, I'd like to call him, the dollar store or the poor man's version of John Lineker, as he has the same kind of body composition, almost the same type of fighting style as well too. Throws a little bit more straighter shots than we've seen from John Lineker, but ultimately does resort to those winging hooks as always to try to land those big bombs. And I feel like he fights the same way too, where it doesn't matter if he's at a height disadvantage or a reach disadvantage or anything like that. I feel like if he doesn't respect the shots that are coming his way, he's just going to keep walking through it, just as he did to Marlon Vera, just as he did to Renan Barão. But then when he has guys fighting with a little bit more pop on their shots, he's a little bit more hesitant to kind of close that distance, like the Rob Fonts and the Petr Yan fights. Here against Lerone Murphy, we know what Lerone brings to the table. That guy has insane power. To get the knockout that he did over Ricardo Ramos last time around on the ground, stacking a guy and just winging the shots that he did, you can tell the guy generates an insane amount of power and is able to generate just insane momentum as well in his strikes. I think the guy has a high ceiling as well too. It was very unfortunate that he went to a draw in that Zubaira to Hugov fight because he just couldn't stop takedowns for his life. And, he was able to get back to his feet, which is a good sign, but just giving up those takedowns is just not a good look. It doesn't even matter if Zubaira was trying to take a nap on top of him. The fact he's getting taken down just does not look good in the judge's eyes. So I think if he shores that up, he'll have a bright future. I don't think he has to worry too much about takedowns in this fight against Douglas. We know Douglas's game. He wants to move forward. He wants to land bombs. He wants to take your head off. Unfortunately for him, I think he's going to have a lot to deal with here, where he's having a guy that's striking with more conviction, striking with more power, striking with some volume as well too. And we'll see Lerone Murphy kind of maintain that distance and really keep Douglas on the outside. So I do like Lerone here. I'm just trying to figure out, if he goes out there and pursues the takedown, which I think is very live for him to get, I don't really think highly of Douglas Silva de Andrade's takedown defense. I think he's a guy that can easily get taken down. I think we could see Lerone kind of not take him out the way that he took out Ricardo Ramos, but still land big shots from there and maybe win some minutes on top. But he could be live for a finish from that position as well too. Who knows how much of a decline Douglas truly is. Like getting a victory over Renan Barão in your last fight in 2019. Come on, guys. Like we know what we're getting with Renan Barão in this day and age, especially post USADA. So that fight was a little bit closer than it realistically should have been, considering the standard that everybody was putting Douglas in that fight. I think that Lerone is just on a different trajectory right now. I think he's going to be the faster one. He's going to hit a little bit harder, and maintaining that distance and that reach is going to be key for him, unless he wants to go in there and shoot takedowns, because I think that's live for him too. But I'll go with Murphy here. I think he wins this fight, picks him apart from the outside. Maybe it hurts him a couple times too, but I'm going with Murphy here.
Good stuff, Locke. Cody Saftic, who you taking?
Hard to look better than Lerone Murphy at the scales, but then you got Douglas Andrade, who's, my God, how do you fit that much muscle into that frame? Like, good
Shredded.
Lord. Oh, man, absolutely shredded. Listen, he's dangerous because it's very hard to back him up. He just plants his feet. He chucks those bombs. Yeah, he's got that John Lineker style. He's actually got a similar style to a Renan Barão, who he, just obviously got the victory over his last time. Not even just got the victory. It's 2019, long time ago for Andrade. Like, he's got that fun, exciting style. He can make it dicey. It's hard to enter in on him just because he's always going to be counterpunching. But yeah, he is very much the poor version of John Lineker because he doesn't have the durability and he doesn't have just that forward motion where he's coming forward, pressing all the time, being aggressive. I like Lerone Murphy. I like him a lot. I think that he presents a lot of good assets, valuables. He's fast. He's athletic. He's got a good ground game that's improving. He also comes into this fight with a 5-inch reach advantage. So he's got a 73-inch versus just 68 inches for Douglas de Andrade. And that's another thing because Lineker's got has a small reach as well. If you're small, you got to close up that pocket and just wing those overhand hooks. A lot of it's hooks. Now it's not straight punches. And with Andrade, he just waits a second too long, right? He's not like Lineker, who's a little more reckless and can just take the punch to give it back. He doesn't have that same chin, so he just kind of conserves himself a bit more. With Lerone, I think he's going to be able to beat him to the punch on the outside, but eventually just time that takedown, get him down. He actually outstruck Zubair Tukhugov in his UFC debut, won 2 of the 3 rounds. Unfortunately, it was a 10-8 first round, and he gave up 6 takedowns. But to me, it's amazing that you can outstrike a man while giving up 6 takedowns, spending that much time on your back, scrambling to get back up. And when he does get back up, he's not all, oh, shit, he's going to take me down again, being hesitant. He's going after it. He also tried to attempt, he had a couple submission attempts against Zubair Tukhugov, where you just see where his grappling, for a British fighter, a lot of time we love to rag on guys from England. They're not great wrestlers. They're not great grapplers. It's a work in progress. This guy's definitely out of those wrinkles to his game. And then you see that against Ramos, where his striking looks good. But eventually, as soon as the fight does hit the ground, He just looks like he's making those improvements. Still only 29 years old, training, at Manchester top team, not exactly American top team, but you do see improvements from him from every fight out. And I made the comparison a couple times to him and Leon Edwards. And Leon Edwards is very much one of these guys that everyone loves to laugh at, and nobody really credits his skills, but nobody's lining up to fight this guy other than Kazmat Chimaev. Like, okay, great. But people recognize that Leon's an extremely tough fight, and it's not the most sexy style, most sexy name. He grapples a little bit. He strikes a little bit. He has high ring IQ. Lerone Murphy has all those things as well. And I think that that's the keys that you need to beat Andrade, who's coming off, again, year-plus long layoff. When you look at this card, there's multiple guys coming off these year-plus long layoffs. And for the UFC, they're jamming up a Wednesday card in between a really fun Max Holloway Cater card and their GOAT, their pretty boy, Conor McGregor on a pay-per-view. This is just like a sandwiched middle of we owe these guys contracts, so who wants to take a fight? And you're kind of getting like a random assortment of guys. But for Andrade, 35, long layoff, pulled out of his last fight. It was due to COVID, but they didn't rebook him for another 8 months after that. So obviously he wasn't in great shape physically. I would have to say Lerone Murphy. He's one of these 3-1 favorites on the card that I actually don't mind when you consider Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone looked like shit at the weigh-ins, okay? Is questionably chinny and didn't lose to – everyone keeps saying he lost to the California kid. Did not. Lost to the California man. Right? It was a way past expiration date version of Uriah Faber. And yet he's still 450, he's still a big favorite. When you look at Umar, it's like, dude, you're taking on a legitimate former M1 champion who's got something in his bag of sleeves. Like, if you look at some of those other big favorites, there is some cause for concern. Whereas with Lerone Murphy at 3-1, I think that's a fair price. And I'm hoping he goes and does what he's capable of, and that's get the win.
Right on. Guru, who you taking?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have a different take than most people on this one. I feel like
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah,
Let's go,
I feel
baby.
like the lineman is kind of off. I feel like Andrade, it should be lined a lot closer, and because of that, I'm just gonna go ahead and go with Douglas DeAndrade because I actually like Lerone Murphy. I mean, I picked Lerone Murphy in both of his UFC fights, even when he was a big underdog against Zubair Tukhugov, but I feel like his striking isn't on the same level as DeAndrade. I mean, he has that. The nice cross that he throws, he'll switch stances, and he is going to have that big reach advantage. And he has good forward pressure cardio, and he throws a lot. But, when I watched his fight with Ricardo Ramos, I mean, to me, Ramos was winning the striking, and he was throwing a lot of, I feel like if someone was being, clean or not throwing, those super weird kicks that Ramos was throwing, 360 round kicks, all that craziness, just through leg kicks, be sharp, counter when Murphy tried to come in. It would be hard for Murphy to close the distance, and that's kind of what I see Andrade doing. I don't think Andrade is going to be, as wild with the kicks and let Murphy get on the inside, because I do think that Murphy is going to want to try to grapple in this fight, get it to the ground, because we saw his ground and pound, like they were saying, is vicious. And if he can get on top of DeAndrade, we've seen, Petr Yan kind of out-grapple him before, but we've seen, Douglas DeAndrade go in there and, dominate Marlon Vera, take down Marlon Vera, take his back, and out-grapple Vera pretty much. So I feel like, this is his second fight at 145. He's undefeated here, and he's fought just a lot higher level competition, man. I mean, he's fought, even if he's losing, the Petr Yans, the Rob Fonts, and Lerone Murphy. I mean, he's really only fought 2 guys, and he only has 1 win. The other one was a draw. So I feel like Ricardo Ramos is also, young in his career too, like Murphy. So it's a different kind of matchup. I feel like if the line was closer, I'd probably go with Murphy, but just because it's so wide, I'm just going to pick Douglas DeAndrade to get the win.
I understand it, Guru. And I'm with you on the fact, Guru, that you think this line is a little bit too wide. I think so too, but you know what? We got a lot of big favorites on this card. Seems to be the case. This stuff happens. I am going to end up taking Lerone Murphy. But man, there's a lot to unpack here. I feel like, one thing before I forget, man, those weigh-ins today, Lerone Murphy had a size advantage on Andrade that I was not expecting. Obviously we see the measurables and stuff, but wow, Lerone Murphy, this is a tall, long dude. But Douglas Da Silva Andrade, man, only 3 losses. Look at those 3 losses. This guy's lost to, some high-level competition here. The main thing for me, though, that seems to stand out is, if you let him get his game off, man, he's good. He's a dangerous guy. He hits really hard, gets it going, and, it's kind of like he picks up steam, and he can't overwhelm you at times. You know what I mean? But I think he's really good as a hammer. We use this phrase. He's good at being the hammer, but I don't think he's so good at being the nail. So I think Lerone Murphy needs to come in here, get started, get going on him. Put up the numbers. Try to outpace this guy. But I do think it's going to be a close fight. I'm going to take Lerone Murphy. Wish we could get a better number on it. It is what it is. I even understand Guru taking that dog shot. So we're rolling along here. We got Tyson Nam going up against Matt Schnell, and I think Cody's up on this one.
Yeah, well, I could probably get through this one pretty quick because I just don't. I think the line's really good. I think Tyson Nam comes through. He does exactly what he's done in his last two, and that's take on overmatched opponents and hit them with that power. With Matt Schnell, like, I'm a Matt Schnell fan, first and foremost. I've been following this guy since he was an amateur all the way to his entire pro run through Legacy and now eventually to the UFC, training at American Top Team. He's left there. He's going to Fortis. It's awesome. But, like, where does he win this fight? He's got better grappling if he was to end up on top. I don't know how he goes out there and takes down Tyson Nam, who I think has got better takedown defense. As far as Tyson Nam taking him down, he won't, because Tyson Nam doesn't want to take down anybody. He likes to stand and bang. Therefore, Schnell's not going to be able to be opportunistic off his back and throw up triangles and arm bars. His wins in the UFC are those triangle chokes, right? Outside of that, he hasn't looked particularly great. As me and Manfred talked about yesterday, his wins, for the most part, they're all lower-level guys outside of the win over Louis Smolka. That's kind of the feather in his cap. But before that, beating Marco Antonio Beltran on a competitive decision, beating Naoki Inoue in a close split decision, you don't see a ton out of him. I would give him a speed advantage. I would give him an output advantage, but output doesn't matter if you're getting knocked out in the first round. Output only matters if you're going to fight a guy for 15. Matt Schnell's not really going out there and fighting for 15. A lot of his fights have been unders lately, and this is another fight that screams under 2.5, probably under 1.5. If Schnell isn't able to get this fight to the ground against Tyson Nam, he's getting knocked out. And that's where I think he's going to have trouble in this fight, is that I don't think he gets it to the ground. His offensive wrestling is just not strong enough. He's not strong enough. And then last but not least, I'm all on Tyson Nam before anything else. The fight gets booked already twice. The last time he gets booked, Schnell gets on the scale. He misses weight. He's 128 pounds. He's 2 pounds over. He looks like shit. He goes out and he gets sick the next day, and they cancel the fight day of, right? Tyson Nam still gets his show money. Fight gets scrapped. Now they rebook Matt Schnell, not at 135, because Tyson Nam would fight you at 135. He doesn't mind. They do it right back at 125. Matt Schnell makes 125 today. Looks like shit. But he's not going to get sick and pull out tomorrow. He's going to show up. And when he does show up, his chin's going to be compromised. His energy is going to be compromised. And Tyson Nam's just one of these guys that makes weight easy. He takes his time, right? That's one thing. He lets rounds get away from him because he takes his time. But he's one of these guys that, not like a Davidson Figueiredo, but in the same mindset of he doesn't throw a ton of punches. It's just the ones he does have a tremendous amount of power for that weight class and are capable of knocking out anybody. So with Matt Schnell, knocked out on the regional scene, comes to the UFC, he knocked out by Rob Font. No problem. That's Rob Font. We give him a pass. It's a first round knockout. Knocked out against Hector Sandoval. That one, it's a half shot to the side of the head. He folds over. It's another first round knockout. That one looks bad. Run of lower level opponents. And then Pantoja is a good fighter. Pantoja is a good grappler, especially. His striking's okay, but nothing to write home about. And again, you see as soon as he touches Matt Schnell in the chin, Matt Schnell topples over. Another first-round knockout. 3 losses in the UFC, all 3 by first-round knockout. And now taking on Tyson Nam, who, all he needs to do is go in the back and go see Zarrukh, Adashev, or Jerome Rivera and be like, so what did you guys think about it? And they'd be the first. They're both on this card, too. They both suffered the same fate of less than 2-minute knockouts. Tyson Nam's not a guy you play with. You got to be a top 15 guy, top 10 guy, or you're going to be in for a short night. Matt Schnell falls into that category. So this is an extremely gracious line, I believe, and I think you can chase it up even more by getting plus money play on Tyson Nam by KO at plus 150. Good
stuff. Guru, who you got?
Yeah, to me, this is a fight where it's basically, I feel like Matt Schnell does is going to be the faster guy, going to be landing more numbers, have the edge on the feet, and it's going to be, him winning until he loses, basically, when Tyson Nam knocks him out. Because, you have to look at his nickname, man. His nickname is Danger, and if you watch how he fights, like, I think 10 of his 12 wins are in the first round, and, you see him go out there with Alexandre Pantoja, and you see he's way faster than the guy. He's leg kicking him. He's keeping him at range, counter punching him. And then all of a sudden he just decides to plant his feet and they're just trading in a phone booth. And, ultimately Matt Schnell gets face planted and, he's been knocked out 4 times now. So he actually, the one fight where he fought Jonathan Martinez, he got the win with an illegal knee, but he was out really bad. If you watch that fight, that was a bad knockout. The fight against Rob Font was a really bad knockout as well. Even the Pantoja one was a pretty bad knockout. So, I feel like Tyson Nam, he's getting old too, though. He's, I think, 37, 38 years old, and his last 2 fights were at 135. So, even if he made the weight easier than Schnell, maybe that could affect him a little bit, being older, cutting down, the 10 pounds. But, I still feel like, I mean, Schnell's just going to give him too many opportunities to land that shot. If I had, confidence that Schnell was going to, use the leg kicks and move around and try to just kind of pot shot his way to a victory, then, I might pick him. But I just feel like he's probably going to, go to get into the fire with a guy like Tyson Nam. And, that's something you don't want to do. And I think Nam's going to probably knock him out. So going to go with Tyson Nam.
Good stuff, Guru. Locke, what do you think?
It doesn't happen often where I record my own podcast, pick a guy, and then as fight week approaches, I completely make a 180. And that's exactly what happened with me here. Like, normally I like to go out there and fade guys that have a very narrow path to victory. That's something that I'd harp on a lot. And Tyson Nam is just that. He has a very narrow path to victory in most of his fights. Low output. I kind of compared him to a buffering screen because that's what it looks like. He's just buffering and waiting to like fully load so that he can unload on you guys. And you ask Mr. Jerome Rivera, you ask Zarrukh Adashev, and they felt that power. Ali Bagutinov, another guy that felt power of Tyson Nam. And I went with the angle of, Matt Schnell, volume striker, can win rounds, can win minutes, has good jiu-jitsu as well too. But the durability, man, once you really start to look at it and look at those knockouts that he suffered, it's hard not to believe that Tyson Nam is going to go out there and just knock this guy out, right? Like the Hector Sandoval one was really bad. Again, Cody said it was like a half-hearted ground and pound attempt from Hector Sandoval, and it started to rock Matt Schnell. So I think that Tyson Nam is going to be losing this fight up until the point that Matt Schnell is not conscious. I mean, I think that's pretty much how it's going to be, whether it's first round, whether it's second round, whether it's third round. We know his power is transferable from round to round. Just ask, again, Ali Bagutinov, who got knocked out in the last second of the third round in their fight. Again, it's going to be very frustrating to watch Tyson Nam, but then once he gets that knockout blow, then you're like, all right, this is why I bet him. I'm just waiting for him to get that one shot, and I think that's all it's going to take. It's going to take one clean shot, and I think if you're a Matt Schnell backer here, those 15 minutes are going to be hell for you. You're going to be thinking like, okay, he's not going to be able to get Tyson Nam down, nor do I think he's going to get him down long enough to implement that jiu-jitsu game. So now you're talking about a match now that has to go out there and outstrike Tyson Nam and try to stay away from that power for 15 minutes. I'd probably lose years off my life if I had money on Matt Schnell here. That's just being honest. But if you're looking to play Matt Schnell, I think the decision prop is the most value you're going to get. So if you're looking to back Schnell here, that's the angle that you go with, so you can get the most bang for your buck. Speaking of bangs, though, Tyson Nam is actually going to bang on this guy and just knock him out. I think plus 150 or plus 155 for Nam via KO is a very smart spot to bet here. Even taking him straight, I think that's almost nonsensical. Like, the guy's not a round winner. He's had 7 complete rounds in the UFC. Lost all 7 of them just because he doesn't have the volume. But then again, why do you need volume when you can, give that death touch to people? Just land on these guys and absolutely flatline them. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here with Matt Schnell. And it hurts for me to say that. I'm a Matt Schnell fan. I like what he brings to the table, but that durability is such a question mark. And actually, not even a question mark. It's a known fact. He does not have any durability. So when you're putting him up against a top power puncher like Tyson Nam, I think it's just a bad recipe. So I'm going with Tyson Nam losing this entire fight up until the point he gets that knockout, and that's the angle that I'm going with. So I like Tyson Nam via KO here.
I don't think I got anything to say here. You guys have said it all. I mean, truly, you guys are taking the words right out of my mouth. I expect Tyson Nam to lose the entire fight up until he wins, and I do. I think he gets the KO. We've seen Schnell. He just cannot take that shot, right? The dude was like doing a Ric Flair impression against Pantoja. I'm like, is this guy for real the way he's going down off this shot? I mean, come on. But yeah, man, Matt Schnell, I think he's going to get in there. I think he's going to mix it up. I think he's eventually going to make the mistake, get the chin tested. I think Tyson Nam goes in there, lands that shot. If it goes to a decision, I almost feel like Schnell will definitely win. I expect him to have more output, but Locke, you touched on the point, man. Like, you don't like to back a guy that you feel like has a very narrow path to victory. I feel the same way, yet I'm going to take Tyson Nam. I just think he finds that shot. I'm taking Tyson Nam by KO. If he doesn't get it in round 1, I'm expecting it to happen in round 2. So there you go. All right. Roxanne Modafferi, Viviane Araujo. Is it Guru up on this one?
Yeah, man. I mean, this fight, if we all, the last time I had Roxy over Andrea Lee, she came as a big underdog, and that's kind of, her thing, man. I mean, she's cashed as an underdog, almost every single fight that she's had in her career, she's been an underdog that she's won. So, I mean, in terms of this fight, though, I feel like, this one is going to be a lot tougher fight than Andrea Lee, because you see with Andrea Lee, I mean, she's able to really, really, have the physicality edge in that fight, be a lot stronger in the clinch exchanges, and kind of when she gets on top, she's able to kind of do what she wants. Whereas with Viviane Araujo, I do feel like Araujo is going to maybe be able to match that physicality a little bit in the clinch and maybe be able to kind of, keep Roxy off of her a little bit better. But I do feel like there's a path to victory for Roxanne, just because if you see Viviane Araujo, when she gets put on her back against these girls like Alexis Davis, Jessica Ai, she doesn't really have a good get-up game. She tends to, stay on her back, even though she's a black belt and she will, have pretty good guard retention. She doesn't really look to get up very much, doesn't threaten with submissions. So, if Roxanne can find her way into top position, she could just ride out the round there. But on the feet, I mean, I think we all know who's going to, be the better striker here. I think that Araujo, she obviously hits a lot harder. She's faster. And I see her, her movement and distance control being able to, really be hard for Roxy to get on the inside. But, overall, I mean, with the line, I don't know if I would necessarily, start, betting Viviane like super heavy at like minus 300 or whatever line she is. But I'm going to pick her to win here by decision.
Right on. Lock, who you taking?
Yeah, it's hard to back Viviane Araujo at that minus 300 line. Just take this in. Since Sunday, she was a minus 355 favorite. She's gotten all the way down to a minus 290 favorite now. You know that Roxanne Modafferi money is coming in. A lot of people are thinking about the Antonina Shevchenko fight, the Macy Barber fight, and even most recently the Andrea Lee fight, where she comes in as a plus 250, plus 650, and plus 290 underdog in her last couple of fights. And, she cashes for people. But then when she's not able to cash for people, it looks kind of ugly, right? Like the Lauren Murphy fight. We saw where Lauren Murphy was able to stuff the takedowns, win those grappling exchanges, and then keep the fight on the feet and kind of pick her apart. Now, Viviane Araujo, if she's successful in keeping the fight on the feet, it's going to look a lot more uglier than it did in that Lauren Murphy fight. I think as durable as Roxanne Modafferi is, and I believe the last time she's actually been finished by punches was against Canada's own Jessica Rakoczy way back on The Ultimate Fighter in 2013. Her durability is absolutely there, but I think this is the first time outside of Antonina Shevchenko where she's fighting a girl that has the power and the pop of a Viviane Araujo. So I wouldn't absolutely rule out a potential finish for Araujo here. It's going to look absolutely nasty on the feet. It all comes down to Vivi kind of circling off the cage, making sure she doesn't get stuck in those positions. Because one thing that Modafferi, even though she's been around since like 2003, one thing that she's worked on as of late is her strength and conditioning. We see her a little bit more bulkier. We see her a little bit stronger in these fights, right? And I think that's one thing that she has to heavily rely upon at this point in time, because her striking is just never going to get better. Like she can hit pads with Mike Pyle all she wants. It's not going to get better at this point in time. So she has to work towards her advantages, which is right now her strength and her grappling. And Guru brought it up. It's not super reassuring seeing how much Araujo really struggles off of her back. High level as she is with her jiu-jitsu and how as credentialed as she is with her jiu-jitsu, it just doesn't show and translate in her fights. So if Modafferi ends up on top, things could get very, very hairy for anybody that's laying that minus 300 on Araujo. However, I still feel as though Araujo should be able to keep this fight on the feet for the majority of the 15 minutes, go out there, pop Roxanne Modafferi. And even if Modafferi gets this fight to the ground and somehow Araujo gets her way back to the feet, it's almost like the Omari Akhmedov and Tom Breese thing, where she might win some minutes with some top control, but once this fight gets back to the feet, she's going to get busted up. And we know that more often than not, judges score the damage more than anything, right? So it's going to look much worse on Roxanne Modafferi's face compared to the pitter-patter that she's going to be landing on Viviane Araujo on the ground. So it's hard to completely trust a minus 300 to not get taken down, especially considering how successful Roxanne has been against other competition in the past. So I will lean with the Viviane Araujo side. I think the KO is live here as well too. But yeah, minus 300 straight. Ooh, count me out for that one. But I am picking Viviane Araujo to win this fight.
Cody Saftic, fire away.
Yeah, I think Viviane Arroyo's got her outgunned pretty much everywhere, outside of maybe the third round cardio. I mean, Viviane looks like a very good talent for the first 2 rounds. She's got very good striking. She's aggressive. She's very strong. Takedown defense checks out. I mean, there's a lot to like about her. Good leg kicks, good power hooks. You see what she does through to Montana Del Rosa for the first 2 rounds. It's like this girl is busted up. She's bloody. But Montella keeps persevering. And then you see the same thing in the Jessica I fight. You see the same thing in the Alexis Davis fight, is that the longer these fights go, Viviane Arroyo's gas tank falls off. But Roxanne Modafferi is not finishing anybody. She's not finishing you in the third round, especially. If she's going to go up, pull that upset, she needs to get her wrestling going right off the hop and win 2 of these 3 rounds. And I don't think she does that against Viviane Arroyo. We can talk about all the upsets, and there's been some great upsets, but let's just be real here, right? We'll start back from the Antonina Shevchenko fight. Antonina, turns out, cannot wrestle. Roxanne goes out there, completes 5 takedowns over her, wins the decision victory. Then she takes on Jennifer Maia. Well, Jennifer Maia is big. She's strong. She's physical. She's one of these bruising type Brazilians. Roxanne Modafferi went 0 for 9 in takedowns against her. She was not able to even come close to taking down Jennifer Maia, and as a result, cleanly gets pieced up. I think it was like 88-20 on the significant strikes numbers, loses that fight. Then she gets Macy Barber. Well, Macy Barber's 21 years old, and then proceeds to blow out her knee 2 minutes into the fight. So Roxanne does get those takedowns, and she's able to hold down Macy Barber, and she's able to win the fight against Macy Barber. It's a nice win. The very next fight against Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy is a strong brawler, bruiser type fighter. And Roxanne, she only attempted 1 takedown. She wasn't even trying to take her down. But you know what? She failed to get that takedown. That's probably why she didn't go with the Jennifer Maia game plan. She just knew, I'm not strong enough to get this girl to the ground. But what does she go do in classic Roxanne Modafferi fashion? She goes out, she draws Andrea Lee. If I told you boys that Andrea Lee had a problem stuffing takedowns, would you be surprised? No, that's her narrative. She cannot stuff takedowns. Not happening. On top of that, Roxanne Modafferi had obviously previously beaten her in Invicta. So she kind of had that coming into it. And what does she do? She goes out there and proceeds to get outstruck soundly, 97-60, but the takedowns save her. Well, my problem is this Viviane Arroyo fight. She's not getting those takedowns for the first 2 rounds. So she's going to get beat up on the feet for the first 2 rounds. And then when she does eventually get Vivi tired, she's still not going to take her down. But even if she was able to take her down, there's no rear naked choke that's coming. There's no armbar that's coming. There's no ground and pound stoppage from Mount. You guys have all seen Roxy's ground and pound. It's the worst in company history, right? There's no TKO that's coming out of this. There would potentially be a submission. She is a credible BJJ black belt, but it doesn't translate to wins in mixed martial arts by submission. So if anything, she would have to get an early start, and that's not something she does. I give Viviane Arroyo. I would say it's going to be one of my parlay pieces, at least on one of the first 2 brackets. And listen, it's women's MMA. It's someone with a suspect gas tank, and it's against this upset specialist of the world, Roxanne Modafferi. There's not a ton of spots in this card that you love so much. But hey, we're here giving picks. We're going to put parlays together. I'm going to put parlays together. And Viviane seems like there's a massive skill discrepancy. It's just whether or not she blows it in the 3rd round. And even if she does, like I said, I don't see that finish coming. So sign me in for the Brazilian to get the job done. And like you've seen many times from Roxanne Modafferi, when she's out physically matched and she can't get that fight to the ground, there's no plan B, right? There's just toughness, heart, durability, way of the samurai. That's how she lives her life. But at 37 years old, I don't think she's going to go on a serious title run here. And beating Viviane Arroyo would put her in the top 5 of the division, the top 10 of the division. Like, it puts her in those talks. She's a gatekeeper. She defeats the 21-year-olds. She defeats the kickboxers that can't grapple, and she never hops over that hump. And Viviane Arroyo is a handful. So sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to take Araujo on this one as well. You know, it's a little bit terrifying, right? Roxanne Modafferi, man, Guru, you talked about it. She repeatedly cashes as a big underdog. Should that really have any relevance? I don't know, man, but it sure seems to. You know, to break this fight down, you know, to reduce it as simply as possible, you know, I think if Modafferi hits repeated takedowns, I think she's got a sneaky heavy top game. You know, we see people kind of struggle to get out from under her, which I think surprises a lot of people. Does she hit some takedowns in this fight? Yeah, maybe she does. And I'm a little bit worried about that Araujo, you know, get up game. I think she's got pretty good takedown defense, but all in all, man, I see this fight playing out on the feet, and it's just striking doesn't get much worse than Roxanne Modafferi. Let's keep it real. And Viviane Araujo, I think, is one of the better strikers in the division. I think she really pieces her up. We saw Roxanne Modafferi, you know, react very weird to a specific shot in that Lauren Murphy fight where she ate a really hard shot, almost kind of looked like she was teetering, ready to go down, kind of snaps out of it, gets back in the fight. But nonetheless, I don't know what that was about. But, you know, Cody, like you said, man, 37 years old. She's getting very old. I think she's beyond her expiration date at this point, and I think she's over-exceeded expectations up to this point. I think the time's come. Viviane Araujo, I don't think is the greatest matchup for her. I think Viviane wins this one. I feel like it should be a pretty solid, pretty easy win, but like I said, man, Roxanne Modafferi just continuously cashes as an underdog, and here she is yet again. Okay, Ike Villanueva, Vinicius Moreira, and is it my man Lockup on this one?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Go.
I remember yesterday somebody in the comment section was like, "Why is this fight even on the main card?" And I explained to them, it's you want to get those casuals, and especially on the on a Wednesday afternoon, you want them to see a slot fest, a fight that's probably going to get finished under 1.5, and that's my read on this fight. I think that there's no way this fight goes over that 7.5 minute mark. Either guy is live for a finish, whether it reaches their domain or not. So I think Ike Villanueva obviously live for a KO. Vinicius Moreira, if he gets this fight to the ground, he can absolutely go out there and submit Ike, who has 5 submission losses out of his 11 total losses to begin with. Vinicius Moreira, though, man, his durability just seems to be shot over the last couple fights. You start that off with get knocked out by Alonzo Menafield. That's fine. A lot of people get knocked out by Alonzo Menafield. Then you go out there and get knocked out by Eric Anders. Not the greatest look either. Then he goes out there and gets knocked out by Paul Craig. Paul Craig's not really stiffing dudes nowadays, right? Like, well, he submitted Moreira after knocking him down with a very accurate knee strike to drop him, and then eventually goes with the rear naked choke there. But the fact that the guy's getting dropped left and right really doesn't lead me to believe that he's going to be able to take the shots from Ike Villanueva. Now, people can go out there and rag on Villanueva for losing to Jordan Wright last time around, but Jordan Wright just had him beat in terms of speed. He hit pretty freaking hard, and then obviously that knee that he landed, which ultimately opened up that cut, was very nasty. Like, the guy's eyebrow was almost hanging over his eyeball. Like, it was a very, very bad cut. So I absolutely understand why that fight was finished. But Ike shows power in his hands. His 2 fights before coming to the UFC, he knocked out former UFC fighters in Roger Narvaez and Rashad Coulter. You know what I mean? So he has power, and I truly believe that both of those guys have much better durability than what we've been seeing from Vinicius Moreira as of late. So I like Ike here. I think that he should be able to just maybe even like that first blitz that he throws at Moreira. He's probably going to hurt him. He's probably going to rock him, and then he can just follow up with some ground and pound. Hopefully he doesn't find himself in a submission, but if you're backing the under 1.5, you don't really care who wins here. I think that's the safest spot. That's why we're seeing a little bit more steam come in on that. I bet that a little bit earlier in the week at -120, and now it's all the way up to, I believe, -135, -140. People are understanding that neither of these guys are really not going to last that 7.5 minute mark. Even if Vinicius gets this guy down, I don't see him having much trouble in like locking up an arm triangle or whatever he wants to. Yeah, I like Ike to win this fight by KO. I think he just has the much faster hands. He's going to be much better on the feet, and obviously he has a ton of power, and that's where it comes down to in this fight is who's going to be more durable. And I'm leaning on the Ike side. I think that he gets the KO, and I think it happens in the first round. Even if you guys want to get a little bit more crazy and take that fight won't start round 2 prop, that's +100, but you're already getting some decent value in my opinion with the under 1.5. If you want to take that extra 2.5 minutes and you get that -135, I still think it's a very solid spot. So my spot is Ike Villanueva under 1.5 rounds, and I'm expecting a finish here for sure.
Beautiful stuff, Locke. Cody Saftic, who you got?
Yeah, well, I agree on the under for sure, because Ike's either going to stiffen this guy up in the first round, or Ike's going to get real tired, get taken down late in the first round or sometime in the second round, and Vinicius Moreira probably submits him. I mean, both guys, remember how I mentioned earlier, this is a card that just screams, what are a lot of the guys doing? They're owed fights, they have contracts, and they're just jamming it on this Wednesday. Well, this is another case that you've got Vinicius Moreira coming off like a 16-month layoff. Like, it's just... He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He hasn't fought in a long time, and yet they're parading him back out there to take a fight. It's on the main card, weird. It gets Ike Villanueva, weird. It's 2 of the lower-level heavyweights on the roster currently, and yet this is what you're getting. You're getting them matched up against each other. Sorry, light heavyweights, I suppose. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly look at this fight, and I think it would probably favor Ike Villanueva at first. First regard, you're looking at it, geez, Ike's got the power, and that's all you got to do is you just got to hit Villanueva, or you got to hit Moreira once, and this guy just stiffens up and he goes over. But it's not quite that simple. It's beyond that, right? With Ike Villanueva, he's 36 years old. He was not UFC caliber to begin with, but you look at those wins over Roger Narvaez, and you look at those wins over guys on his way up, right? His big career wins on the regional show scene. They're all first-round knockouts. They're all quick knockouts. Anytime it gets extended beyond that, his cardio falls off rapidly. At 36, he's not getting better. And Ike Villanueva is a guy that fought at light heavy or at middleweight. He's fought at heavyweight. He's fought at light heavyweight. He's fought right across the map. So what does he do? He comes into his UFC debut and he takes on Chase Sherman at heavyweight. A former middleweight, Ike Villanueva, jumps up to heavyweight. And again, same thing. After the first round, he gets completely exhausted. He gets TKO'd like 58 seconds into the second round by Chase Sherman. He rebounds down the Jordan Wright fight. He takes that at 205, but he still looks undersized. He looks slow. Jordan Wright beats him with a punch, and it is a cut stoppage. Fair enough. But what improvements is Ike going to make coming into this fight? None. We just know that he's going to go out there and he's going to throw some punches. With Vinicius Moreira, the one thing I will give him is that prior to coming to the UFC, when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series, he had taken on John Allen, who eventually made to the UFC himself. In the John Allen fight, it's like, it's not the prettiest style, but he's a big body. He comes over, he grinds you up against the cage. I call it like a poor man's Bigfoot Silva, but he's able to eventually drag his opponents to the ground, and that's when his submission game comes into play. He's a credible BJJ black belt, I guess. It's just he's so stiff and so rigid and can't move and can't take a punch that's what's leading to his downfall. But Alonzo Menafield, crazy amount of power, catches him, knocks him out. Eric Anders hasn't really shown a whole lot of power, but we all know the guy throws heavy. Bad intent, gets knocked out. Paul Craig, that's a bum performance. But he's 29 years old when he loses to Paul Craig. And when you're getting knocked out by all these guys, and now the damage is starting to compound, the best thing you can do is take time off, and that's what he's done. So coming off his 16th month layoff, his chin would have at least recovered theoretically. And if he's improved his cardio a little bit, and he's improved his wrestling a little bit, he's just going to back Ike right up against the cage as soon as the round starts. Ike fights awful off his back against the cage. You don't have to take him down. He just doesn't fight well with his back against the cage. Vinicius just got to press him there, and then Ike will start to get tired. And Vinicius will eventually trip him to the ground or drag him to the ground, and he's probably going to end up submitting him. So I flipped my pick. I originally thought Ike would probably just end up catching him, but now I'm thinking that this is a greasy, passable fight. It is a dog or pass fight. I think Vinicius drags him down at some point, submits him.
Ooh, I like it. Guru, who you got?
Man, I mean, this fight, I don't think anyone could have a real strong read, but I do agree with Lock of the Night. I think it'll be over in that first round, man. I really do, because, I mean, when you look at Vinicius Moreira, all of his losses are in the first round. He got knocked out 3 times, basically 4 times, like you guys said, with the Paul Craig fight, where, a lot of refs would have stopped that before the submission attempt. So definitely took a lot of damage in that fight, too. And when you look at Ike Villanueva, I mean, he has 14 knockouts, and they're all in the first round. So, I mean, I feel like he's either going to catch him in that first round and knock him out probably like really early in the fight, like within 1 minute, or Moreira is going to be able to, clinch him against the cage, get him tired, and take him down and probably get a submission. So, I mean, it's kind of like a pick your poison kind of fight, but I saw something at the weigh-ins. I mean, I'm going to go with Ike Villanueva. And I mean, it's something that I saw last week too, and I didn't really take it into account at all, where last week Santiago Ponzinibbio, he was the last guy to weigh in, kind of looked, sunken out, needed the towel. And then the same thing happened this week with Vinicius, where he was the last guy to weigh in. He needed the towel. And so I'm going to go with Ike Villanueva, first-round knockout. But, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked either way on this one. I mean, either guy could win, but I definitely see it going, not to decision for sure, and probably under 1.5.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's for me, guys. That's the total play here. Under 1.5, under 1.5. I love that under 1.5. Probably my favorite bet on the entire card, truly. Yeah, I mean, if Ike Villanueva comes out there hot, puts him up against the cage, starts just throwing some fists, something connects, Vinicius Moreira is going down. I mean, Cody, maybe you're right, man. Maybe he does have an improvement in his chin with that time off. Could happen. But if it does happen, then I think Vinicius Moreira slings him to the ground, locks up something, chokes him out. Ike Villanueva susceptible to the submissions. Vinicius Moreira susceptible to the KO. These guys both match up. I see a finish here under 1.5. That's what I'm taking. We're also here to make a pick, though. Give me Ike Villanueva. I think he gets out there, puts that pressure on, and gets him out of there. But like I said, the play's under 1.5 for sure. Okay. Co-main event. Man, we're getting there. Warlley Alves, Mounir Lazzez, and I think Cody's up on this one.
Yeah, this is another spot where I think that the UFC is trying to showcase Mounir Lazzez. He came into his UFC debut against Razak Al Hassan, who ended up being a total bust. But all the same, people, including myself, were thinking this guy probably didn't have a a very immediate path to victory. He kind of seemed a little bit stiff in his striking, even though people that have trained with him and have worked with him said that he's very fluid and very, a very precise striker. What we had seen on tape was very limited, and he didn't look great. The one loss that was obviously on his record against Eldar Aldarov. What can you take away from that? Eldar Aldarov is a big, thick Russian international master of sport in combat sambo, and sure enough was able to just take him down and repeat. It is a 25-minute fight, though, and Mounir Lazzez shows that he's got some durability as well. When it comes to the UFC, it wasn't one of those simple, oh man, he just got out of the first round with Al Hassan and Al Hassan's tired. It's like he took some big shots by Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and he wore them extremely well. This is a guy that you hit him, he wakes up and he brings his own level of competition even higher, right? He kind of seeks his best out of his opponents. And he's just a long, rangy striker that is going to be able to go out there and put a pace on you. If you're able to take that pace and match it, you're going to give him some problems, sure. Warlley Alves just doesn't seem to be that guy. Now, thinking about your UFC, I totally understand. We've just had Ike Villanueva versus Vinicius Moreira on a main card. Clearly, they don't care too much, but this is the co-main event, and it's not because of Warlley Alves. Sure, he's won the Ultimate Fighter. Sure, he's got a guillotine submission win over Colby Covington, but he has not looked good a number of years. He's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. He's getting older. He hasn't competed in a while against. That's a recurring theme on this card. And honestly, Warlley Alves is kind of one of these one-round fighters. He might go out there in that first round and look really good against you, but as soon as you put a little bit of pressure on him, you put a little bit of pace on him, he falls apart. It first happened in the Brian Barberena fight, but then you see it happen in the James Krause fight where he is just unbelievably gassed, getting picked apart by pieces against James Krause and eventually TKO'd, and then sure enough, his last fight as well. So I honestly think this is a spot that he comes out there against Mounir Lazzez, and his best path to victory is really what he did against Colby Covington. He needs to try to get that submission. His striking did look good against Sergio Moraes, but you have to realize that Sergio Moraes spent 35 years of his life doing jiu-jitsu before picking up a pair of gloves. Like, he's not a striker at all, and it's okay. I wouldn't say it's easy, but you can look like a fantastic striker against a guy like that. Against Mounir Lazzez, who's way bigger, way longer. You've seen it at the weigh-in, same thing, big height discrepancy, big size, overall size. Warlley Alves, after that first round, if he doesn't pick up a submission victory, he's going to be tired. And when he's tired and unable to get this fight to the ground, he probably gets TKO'd in the second or third round, just like he did against James Krause.
Sounds good to me, man. Guru, who you taking?
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to go with Mounir Lazzez. I just feel like, the UFC is obviously trying to set him up here. And I mean, Mounir Lazzez is a guy that fights in the UAE a lot. I mean, he fought and he trains there, I believe, as well. He trains in Dubai. So I think that's also part of the reason probably why he got the co-main event. They're going to have fans in there too. So I'm sure Lazzez is going to have the full backing of the crowd behind him. But, when you see Warlley Alves, I mean, it is hard to just totally, discount him because he does have a lot of skills. I mean, this is a guy that, like Cody said, submitted Colby Covington. It's a guy that Chael Sonnen guaranteed would be a UFC champion on Tough Brazil. And
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I mean, he had some hype behind him, and I mean, he's still young. It's not like he's that old of a guy. So, I mean, I heard him this week talking in interviews. He's talking about how he has kind of like a, renewed vigor for the sport, different mindset, stuff like that. So, I mean, maybe he could come in here and look different, but from what you see in certain fights, I mean, you just see him coming in out of shape at certain fights. Like when he fought James Krause, I feel like, he had belly fat in that fight, gassed out really bad, got knocked out. And then you see him coming in other fights where he's in better shape and he looks good. So he's a hard guy to get a read on. And I do feel like he has a path to victory in this fight with the grappling, because when you see Mounir Lazzez against Eldar Aldarov, I mean, Eldar Aldarov is a beast, but he took him down like over 10 times. I mean, a lot of times in that fight. And then you watch even Mounir Lazzez's fight with this guy, Christophe Van Dijk, where in the first round of the fight, I mean, Lazzez got taken down. He got mounted. Even at the end of the first round, he was in a mounted armbar. And even, gave his neck up. The guy, pulled guillotine on him. So, I mean, that's definitely something you don't want to do against Warlley. So I feel like Lazzez, if he gets taken down in open space, Warlley's going to have a big opportunity to submit him. But it looks like against the cage, he has good get-up game. And you do see him just be super aggressive. He throws a lot of volume. He's really long, rangy. And I think as long as he doesn't get submitted real early in that first round, he's just going to drown Warlley with that pace and volume that he has. And I do see him potentially getting a knockout, because we saw Warlley really struggle with the knees that James Krause had. And you see Mounir Lazzez being, a longer guy. I think he actually has, better knees than James Krause. So I feel like Lazzez may be able to get him out of there with something flashy and, give the UFC what they want, which is, another big win for him. So I'm going to go with Lazzez, but I do see, a couple paths to victory for Warlley.
I feel you, Guru. Locke, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a similar instance where in the last card where they're kind of propping up a certain guy, and that certain guy last time around was Joaquin Buckley, and we saw what happened that time. And this time, I think we're going to get a different outcome. I think we see Lazzez actually pull it off and actually give the UFC what they want. One thing that might surprise a couple guys is actually Mounir Lazzez is older than Warlley Alves too. That's something that people need to take into consideration. He's 32, I believe. Warlley Alves is either 29 or 30. We're getting differing opinions on Tapology and obviously the UFC's tail of the tape. But yeah, Warlley Alves is a one-round fighter, and that I truly believe that. Like, we see him start to suck wins once that second round starts to begin, obviously in the James Krause fight. And that's a fight that I kind of take a lot of stock in because I feel like we're going to see a similar type of performance where we saw James Krause kind of doing some good work from the distance, landing good kicks, landing good knees, landing good strikes from that distance. And Warlley Alves really found it difficult to kind of close that distance and get his game going. Now you're getting a guy that's 2 inches taller, has a 4-inch reach advantage here as well too, and he's a sniper. The guy has a really good understanding of that distance striking game, and I feel like that's really going to give Warlley Alves some issues here. Is he going to be able to jump guillotine on a guy that has a height advantage over him like this? Probably not. His best path to victory will probably be try to get this fight to the ground. But when have you really seen Warlley Alves be like a really good wrestler and getting these fights to the ground over and over again? That we don't really see that. Like I'm seeing the narrative and the angle on Warlley Alves out there being, okay, he's going to get that first round sub, but when did he become Damian Maia, right? Like everybody's out there, like as soon as this fight hits the ground, that he's going to go out there and snatch the neck and get a submission victory. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion here. I think that once this fight hits the second round, it's going to get very, very shaky for Warlley. It's going to get even harder for him to close that distance. He's going to be eating shots up the middle. I like the variety of strikes that we see from Mounir Lazzez too. He doesn't just headhunt. Like he's kicking the body, he's punching the body, he's kicking the legs, whatever it is. He's going out there and putting in output. But one thing I do want to do is kind of reel his hype back a little bit, because I feel like people are kind of extending his ceiling further than what it actually is. Because when you go out there and beat a guy like Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, if you're able to withstand that first barrage from him, it's kind of easy to look good against him because that power is gone from Al-Hassan. He's almost like a sitting duck. The one thing that he really has going for him is his durability, outside of getting knocked clean out by Chaos Williams. But I truly think that you can look really good against Abdul Hassan if you can survive that first barrage, and that's exactly what Mounir did. Came in as a huge underdog in that fight and completely proved a bunch of people wrong that night. Unfortunately for Warlley Alves, I lump him in to that Abdulrazak Al-Hassan category where, Mounir, as long as he survives that first round or even those first like 3-ish minutes, he should be able to cruise here and possibly get that finish in the second or third round. On the prop show last night, I put out the Lazzez round 2 plus 500. I think there's some value there. But if you want to be even safer, you can play that plus 900 or plus 1100 for him to win inside round 3. It's going to be a complete mismatch when it comes to the striking technical abilities. Again, that distance is going to be too much for Warlley Alves to overcome here. And I truly think the body work of Lazzez in terms of just, mainly focusing on the body probably in that first round is going to pay dividends for him the longer this fight goes on. So I do like Lazzez here. I think he's live for a finish as well too. And I think the, UFC's message here in terms of trying to prop up Lazzez and kind of bring him along a lot quicker, again, taking into the consideration that he's 32 years old, you really got to get rolling for this guy if you want to kind of make him a little bit of a cash cow, especially on that side of the world in Abu Dhabi. I believe he is of Turkish descent, and that's where, he's going to have a lot of support from him over there. So, yeah, this is a great spot for him. I think he gets the finish. I think it's probably second round or third round. We're seeing the steam as well. He's up to like minus 270 on one of my books. I think people are trying to hop on him as soon as they can. And I think he still holds some value up there. So the narrow path to victory that Warlley Alves here is very, very narrow, in my opinion. And I think that we're going to see Mounir get that finish in the second or third round.
I'm with you guys. It's Mounir Lazzez for me. The whole narrative, the fact that this is co-main event. Cody, you touched on a lot of these points, man. I couldn't agree more. And you look at matchup wise, yeah, a lock, Guru. You guys touched on it. I could see Alves maybe catching something early, but outside of that, man, just not a very clear path to victory here. Feels like a total setup matchup. You know, we see narratives fail in the UFC. I don't think this one is going to fail. You know, I think Mounir Lazzez absolutely, if this goes to the scorecards, will end up getting the nod. Even if he doesn't, I think he could finish the fight. Warlley Alves, man, you watch the tape on this guy and you say to yourself, through the progression of his career as you watch, you'd say, wow, you know, this guy appears to be fading. I felt like he was, you know, a much brighter prospect only a few years ago. How old is this guy? 35, 36? No, he's only 30 years old. So I don't know what the deal is, but I don't know if it's a motivation thing. Guru, you touched on the fact he kind of came in out of shape. Just a very inconsistent guy. I feel like that's the when you look at his whole career as a whole, just inconsistency, man. Give me Mounir Lazzez. I will say this though, props to the people that hit Mounir Lazzez as a pick'em earlier when this fight opened up. Minus 200. I think this line's far more accurate now, and I still think it's okay. Mounir Lazzez is the pick for me, and that is wrapping up the co-main. Guys, it's been a long road, but we've made it through 14 fights. We're up to the main event. Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny, and I believe it's my man Guru kicking us off.
Yeah, man. Like I said right before we started the show, this is a great main event in my opinion, and I actually like Chiesa in this one. I feel like he should be the favorite in this fight, just looking at it in terms of stylistic matchup. I mean, we have seen Chiesa never go to the fourth or the fifth round, so that is something that, you know, a lot of people point to with Neil Magny. Obviously, he has great cardio. But I just feel like when you look at how this fight, you know, goes down on paper, in my opinion, is, I mean, Chiesa is just really good with the forward pressure, backing guys up to the fence. And from there, I just see him being more physical than Magny in the clinch. I mean, we saw Magny against Rocco Martin. He got controlled in the clinch like for 4 or 5 minutes of that fight. A lot of people thought that, you know, arguably Rocco could have won that fight. Rocco was able to take his back from standing, double-legged him. So I do feel like if Chiesa gets in those positions against the cage, he's going to be, you know, playing with the legs, looking to take the back. And I think he'll be able to get the takedowns and kind of be a lot more dominant than Magny in the grappling. I mean, Magny, if you look at his recent fights, a lot of them, he hasn't really been fighting a lot of good grapplers. I mean, he fought a lot of strikers, a lot of people that haven't really been trying to take him down. So I feel like Chiesa, he's looked good at 170. I think he's going to be the more physical guy. He actually looked, I mean, just as big at the weigh-ins. But I do worry about, I mean, the reach of Magny, because I don't know if Chiesa's ever fought someone with, you know, an 80-inch reach like that. So if Magny could kind of start to utilize that and have a little bit better footwork, not get backed up, then maybe he'll be able to, you know, keep Chiesa at the end of his strikes and maybe get him tired and take him out late or something like that. But I just lean more towards Chiesa being able to implement his game. I mean, he looked really good versus RDA. He got 6 takedowns, and I think that's, you know, probably the staple win of his career. So he's looking good now, and I feel like he's going to be able to go in there and get a rear naked choke in the first 2 rounds of the fight. I mean, we've seen Magny submitted multiple times throughout his career, and Chiesa has been able to submit some really high-level grapplers like Beneil Dariush, stuff like that. So I feel like Chiesa is going to be able to go in there and do his thing, get the finish. So I'm going to go with Michael Chiesa.
Right on. Lock of the night. Who you got?
I was hoping that we were going to get a consensus main event pick, but that's not happening. I got my guy Neil Magny here. So I absolutely see Guru's angle here. You know, I mean, Michael Chiesa is absolutely live for a submission in those first 2 rounds. But my question is, if he doesn't pull off that submission, how is it going to look for him later in this fight? Because we know the Gazelle is a cardio machine. The guy trains over there in Denver. Team Altitude, I believe, is who he's with right now. But the guy is just a workhorse. Like, he goes out there and just puts a pace and pressure on guys that eventually breaks them. And luckily for him, this fight was originally scheduled to be 3 rounds, which in my opinion favors Michael Chiesa more. But the fact that this is 5 rounds, it definitely favors Neil Magny more the longer that this fight goes. Now, the takedown should be there for Chiesa, and I believe that he will get the takedown. Now, will he be able to secure that finish? And that's why I kind of approached this fight from from 2 different angles. So I took the Neil Magny side, but I also took the under 4.5 as well too, because that is at plus 125. And I think that if Chiesa does pull this off, it's that early sub. But this also covers my angle, which is a late Neil Magny finish, which I think he's going to be very live for. Now, Neil Magny, not really a one-punch knockout kind of guy, but he can go out there and put a pace and pressure on you that could ultimately lead to like a stand-up striking finish up against the cage, or even, you know, if he drops Chiesa with a little bit of a barrage, overwhelms and maybe mixes in some knees in there to drop him from the body or something like that. But I feel like the pace and pressure of Neil Magny is truly going to pay off for him here. It's all about surviving those first couple, like I'd say 10 to 12 minutes is probably what Chiesa has, because he's going to be dealing with the guy that's going to be working to get up over and over again, and then it's going to get harder and harder to take him down. One thing that we've seen from Chiesa, the longer his fight goes, he does start to suck wind a little bit. He's able to get away with it in these 3-round fights, but when you're talking about an extra 10 minutes that you got to go out there, especially against a guy like Neil Magny, who's gonna stay in your face, and he's going to be pumping that jab in your face, making you uncomfortable, putting you in those stressful situations is only going to make your cardio much, much worse. And I feel like that's the kind of the narrative here with Michael Chiesa, where on the feet, he just does not look comfortable. Like I had this image of Michael Chiesa being serviceable on the feet, but then when you really start to break it down, he just looks like a guy that doesn't want to be on the feet. He's just doing that one shot out there. He's flicking out the kick. He's throwing out a jab, but his main issue, or his main goal, is to push you up against the cage, back you up there, and then take you to the ground and start to get his jiu-jitsu going, which is it's a high level jiu-jitsu. Like, to go out there and submit a guy like Mudaerji earlier in his career is very, very it's a huge accolade to have in your belt, for at least in my opinion. But I find it hard to believe Michael Chiesa pulling off a decision here, which is why I like covering myself with that under 4.5 in case Chiesa does pull off that submission early in this fight. But I do like the Gazelle. I think we're seeing like the Magny 3.0 at this time, because he's been in the UFC for so goddamn long, and now he's on a 3-fight winning streak over a prospect like Li Jingliang. I believe Robbie Lawler was in there as well too, and I just like, well, Robbie Lawler obviously 2020 is just a completely different fighter, so I understand that aspect. But he's on a roll right now, and I feel like he could do this to Chiesa, where he can just continuously get up, hopefully in that second round, and then just start to work him, break him down, and then finish him late. So on the prop show last night, I dropped the plus 1900 Neil Magny round 4, dropped the plus 2400 Neil Magny round 5. I think those are absolutely worth a little bit of a shot here, considering the gas tank issues that I believe that Michael Chiesa has, and the type of pace and pressure that Neil Magny puts on all of his opponents. So I'll go with the Gazelle. It's all about those first 2 rounds. If he can survive that jiu-jitsu onslaught, that's obviously going to be coming from Chiesa here. I think he survives it and then goes on to finish him late. So I'm going with Neil Magny, round 5, TKO.
Beautiful. Cody Saftic, bring us on home, my man.
Yeah, it's a close fight, but I think I'm going to lean with Neil Magny as well. 5 rounds is definitely going to favor him. He just got cardio as a weapon. This guy is output. And can you take him down? Can you out-grapple him? Can you grind him up in spots? Absolutely. We've seen it happen against, the Anthony Rocco Martin fight, but also against Johnny Hendricks back in the day as well, in UFC 207 in Las Vegas. If you are the better wrestler, then yeah, you'll get Neil Magny down, but he just keeps working. That's what won in the Johnny Hendricks fight, is even though he gave up 6 takedowns, he kept just fighting off his back. He kept throwing strikes off his back. When he would get standing, he was going for it. The judges ended up rewarding that. The Rocco Martin fight, he actually only got taken down 1 time, and he's outworking him the entire time. He doubles him up on the striking stats, but his entire run in 2020 has just been output and numbers over 3 rounds. The Jingliang Li fight, he threw 188 strikes. The Rocco Martin fight, he threw 144 strikes. The Robbie Lawler fight, he threw 166 strikes. And that all bodes really well, because Michael Chiesa, career best performance against RDA's last time out, he landed 9 significant strikes over 15 minutes. He does not ground and pound you. He does not, he takes you down. He controls you. He tries to take the back. He tries to fish for some submissions, but ultimately he's going to decision a lot as well. It's not like he's a potent finishing machine. He does have a submission win over Jim Miller. He does have a submission win over Beneil Dariush, but he's also been submitted by Anthony Pettis. So his grappling can look phenomenal. It can also look so-so at times. When you look at his recent run, his 3-fight winning streak, Carlos Condit, not a grappler, old, over the hill, we'd say. Diego Sanchez, you can't submit Diego Sanchez, let's be real, but certainly over the hill. And then Rafael Dos Anjos, who has since gone back down to 155, because at 170 pounds, he's considered over the hill. Chiesa's defeated those guys. Now, drum roll please, another guy that's coming off a 14 or 15-month layoff. Michael Chiesa hasn't fought in that year. So now you take a year-long layoff for a guy who have cardio problems. It's not going to get any better. Both guys are 33 years old, Neil Magny and Michael Chiesa. So they're not prospects. They're not guys that are in the prime of their career. This is it, baby. This is a headlining fight, and we need to position ourselves in a big fight after this, because at 33, writing starts to become on the wall for you. You're only 2 years removed from 35, which we all like to joke around is kind of that golden number in MMA. But with Michael Chiesa, he takes a year-long layoff. He comes back. He gets booked for a 3-round fight. Well, that's easier to imagine. Okay, I'll get ready for a 3-round fight. It gets shifted to a 5-round. that's going to hurt him. Because in that year that he's been away, Neil Magny's fought 3 times, and Neil Magny's looked good, and Neil Magny's cardio looks awesome. And training an Elevation Fight Team, he has got a plethora of high-level wrestlers that are taking him through the paces every single day, and he's made improvements there. And so ultimately, I think that Michael Chiesa has a good round, a good second round. He probably could be winning this fight 29-28 after 3. But then ultimately, he's going to lose this fight 48-47 after 5. I know Locke mentioned that he thinks a late finish by Neil Magny. I don't, just because Michael Chiesa has never been knocked out. He has a TKO loss to Joe Lozon due to a cut stoppage, but it was bullshit. He was coming on strong in that fight. And outside of that, he has been submitted, got submitted by Anthony Pettis. But is Neil Magny going to submit him? I don't know. I kind of have a trouble thinking about that one. And the last thing is Neil Magny's 6'3", 80-inch reach. Michael Chiesa 6'1", I think, with a 75-inch reach. So we know there's going to be a 5-inch reach advantage, but when you see them on the scales today, like, they looked exactly the same size. Michael Chiesa looked big, and that's a problem because he uses that strength and physicality in all of his wins. He gets a hold of you, he peels you to the ground. Beating a shot version of RDA, I can make the joke, he's over the hill, this and that. Like, who are the other guys that were able to do that to him? Oh, yeah, Colby Covington did that to him, and Kevin Lee did that to him, and Kamaru Usman did that to him, and Michael Chiesa looked as good as those guys. He's not. Okay, let's just get that first and foremost out of the way. But he put an excellent grinding clinic on Rafael, and it didn't revolve him really going for submissions. It didn't really revolve for him going for any type of ground and pound. It's just being that much stronger than guys. So seeing him look good, thick, strong, physical at weigh-ins, same size as Magny, maybe he does complete those takedowns in the first couple rounds. But if he's not Damian Maia, and he's not Sergio Moraes, and he's not RDA with that submission game, and he does not submit Neil Magny in those first 2 rounds, I think Magny works his way back into it. This is a close fight. I think this is a definite fight that you bet live. You're going to learn way more as the fight progresses, how Chiesa's looking, how's the gas tank holding up, how's Magny looking. But honestly, as far as the pre-fight pick goes, it's Neil Magny. I think Neil Magny picks it up. I think he wins it by decision as well. As I mentioned, the line's pretty close, so I totally understand people having an opinion on both sides, but I'm going to have to go with Neil continuing this wave of momentum. Since he come back from the Ponzinibbio fight, he's looked like a man on fire, and I like what I see out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you guys what, this was a fight that I spent all week like back and forth on. I started leaning Chiesa, I start leaning Magny, I start leaning back Chiesa. But you know what? As the weeks progressed, I've gained confidence, and I do think Neil Magny is the pick here. Let me tell you why. So I'm seeing it very similar to Cody and Locke, right? I think that Chiesa's got a very good shot. I think if he can put Magny up against the cage, start lacing the leg, take the back, I think he's very live to get a RNC, a rear naked choke, early in that first or second round. I believe Michael Chiesa is 2nd or 3rd all time in the UFC with rear naked chokes. I mean, this guy takes your back. It's a wrap. And that's really needs to be the focus of Neil Magny, is just keeping Chiesa physically off of him those first 2 rounds. And the thing is, for me, we've seen Magny get taken out. We've seen him get submitted, but the fight that stands out to me is the Anthony Rocco Martin fight, where Anthony Rocco Martin initially had some good takedowns, got Magny down, but, Magny eventually got his way back up. Rocco continues to fight for the takedown. At a certain point in that second round, Magny almost starts playing into the fact that Rocco Martin's continuously chain wrestling, continuously trying to get these takedowns, basically lets him cook. Magny kind of lets Rocco burn himself out. What do you know, man? Magny turns it up. The end of that second round, going into that third round, an absolutely massive momentum shift. Neil Magny, we know the cardio's great. We know the pace is great. We know the output's awesome. This is a 5-round fight. One of you guys mentioned it earlier, man. In a 3-round fight, I think this fight plays out very good for Chiesa. A 5-round fight, though, man, I feel like that's so advantageous to Neil Magny. If he can survive the early onslaught of Chiesa, I think he cruises. I think he turns it up on him. Locke, I think I'm with you, man. I could see him potentially putting him away in the 4th or 5th round. But like Cody said, he's never been KO'd. We haven't seen him knocked out. I don't really see Magny subbing him. I think it's a very bettable line, no matter who you back here, whether you're taking Chiesa, whether you're taking Magny. I think the straight plays to play. I'm going to end up on Magny in this one. And my goodness, you guys, 2 hours and 15 minutes later, we've done it. We've wrapped it up. Let's get out of here. Guru, tell the folks where they can find you.
Yeah, man, had a good time. There's a lot of people in the chat today. Expecting, Friday. We're probably going to have a lot of people in here for Friday. That should be an awesome card on Saturday, man. So, we get this little appetizer here first. Hopefully we can make some money. And, yeah, like always, you can catch me Prediction MMA on Twitter if you want to talk fights, anything like that. And then on YouTube at MMA Prediction Guru, you could find my breakdowns for the UFC for different organizations as well. So check that out. And yeah, always appreciate the support.
Absolutely. Be sure to check out my man Guru. He's always doing it up every week. MMA Lock of the Night. Where you at?
You guys know where to find me at MMA LOTN on Twitter, MMA LOTN as well on YouTube. Join me bright and early tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. I'm going to be doing a live stream on my channel, getting us prepped for the card. And that's a reminder to you guys, 9 a.m. start for the prelims on the East Coast. So don't wake up and say, oh, crap, I missed a card. We're reminding you guys right now. So 9 a.m. Eastern and 7:30 for myself. I'm going to be going live, just taking last-minute questions. But yeah, I love doing this. I love that we're getting 2 streams in with this whole crew. Me and Cody are coming back up on Thursday as well at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Prop and UP show. So make sure you guys show up for that for UFC 257. But yeah, this has been a great week. I can't wait to keep it going. And I'm psyched that we're getting midweek fights tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for the PSA for the folks out there that don't know how early this card is. CJ Saftic on Twitter. Where you at?
Yeah, well, obviously we got the big pay-per-view on Saturday, but we've had 500 live streamers, 5 viewers for this show. And honestly, like, it's you guys that are the rock base of this audience. I mean, you're tuning in on a Wednesday to hear about these mid-level fights. When the audience is increased on the Saturday and you get those bigger viewers and you get those numbers, you guys are the guys that have really kept us going and kept us here. And so I'm just really happy to see it grow every week. And honestly, like, I always do read through the chat and it's hilarious. It's super informative. It looks like we got guys that are coming in, becoming regulars. And I just really like what we're seeing here. So you can always catch me on CJ Saftic. And obviously you can always catch me here. Seems like we're here all the time now, which is it's a good time, right? With other sports, maybe due to the pandemic, they're not playing as much or this and that. MMA has been our consistent, and I'm really happy everybody's joined us. And I would love, we'll have to see come tomorrow, but I would love to reward everybody that takes the time to come these Wednesdays. And let's make some money on that Wednesday and build up a nice and even better bankroll for that Saturday so we can take some even better shots. So got to start here. That's the plan. Thanks for joining us tonight, and love chatting with the Odd Squad.
Absolutely, man. Hey, we had some good betting spots on this card. We got some real good ones on Saturday. Can't wait to come back Friday and talk about them. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to the 3 guys on this channel. I'm your host, Bleed. You can check out my channel right here on YouTube, Just Bleed MMA. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram. We got all that stuff. Thank you guys for watching. Like Cody said, you guys are what it's all about. Let's make some money. Let's have some fun. Let's do the damn thing. Odd Squad, we're out.